So let's go back to the teenage years of Luka Hocevar back in Slovenia. Let's talk about that a little bit.
So I lived in London from 7 to 11 years old. Like, sport was everything, and at age 11, like, basketball became like fucking it, you know what I mean? But also, like, when we moved back, we moved back as a family because my dad lost his job, but he stayed and started like this company. We couldn't afford to live there or anything, so my pops didn't move back with me. So he lived in London, we lived in Slovenia. And those are those years where it's like I was already kind of a knucklehead kid.
Yeah.
You know, and we would start. I mean, I'd start like it was like ball, and then I'd show up at school because I had to show up at school. But really, I was like out a lot, you know, in the streets, just doing dumb shit. But by age 12, this is what told me kind of like when I look back, I said, look, I knew I was gonna be an entrepreneur. My dad's friends were like, yeah, this little fucker's gonna be an entrepreneur, because we would. When I lived in London, I was introduced to this whole new world of I would say like at least fashion, as far as like hip hop. I was super into hip hop, and you had the FUBUs and you had the Fat Farms and academics and the Girbauds and like everything that I've never seen. Well, I only seen in like maybe videos or something, right? And I was like, oh shit, like and then I could buy on sale. I mean, we couldn't really afford a lot of it, but I could buy stuff on sale. And I'd come back in the summers and like people would be like, oh dude, what's that, right? And then when I moved back and I started playing ball, like a lot of the basketball community they listen to hip hop. I mean, those two go hand in hand, no matter where in the world you are, right?
Always.
And they would be like, dude, where'd you get this? Like, how can you couldn't buy any of those clothes in Slovenia. Like, honestly, nowhere close. And so I'd bring some stuff back, but then it just became like, how do we get our hands on this? And my friend Giga, his mom had this friend that would she would sew a lot of stuff, jeans and jackets and anything you kind of could imagine. So we took my favorite pair of Sean John jeans. We're like, hey, Giga took them and said, hey, can you recreate these like pretty much stitch for stitch, right? And she's like, yeah, I can pretty much make that happen. So her company was called Musher, so think Usher with an M. Okay.
Yeah.
So we were like, hey, can you make that tag really small? Okay, cool. And we would fucking recreate.
How she would put that tag on?
She would put a tag on it, but it was like we left it completely clean. It was like a really small tag.
Yeah.
Like right here, you can barely tell. And like when we found out that she would make these for like $7 or $8, that's how much she would make it for. And we're like, no shit, can you make all colors and like different materials, right? Because then like the guys that we play ball with, or like the guys that we hung around that like listen to hip hop and stuff, were like, yo, can you get them in brown and make it this material? Like, so we would be going back, and they was like, yeah, she could make anything. So we started like, and we were selling these jeans for like $50, getting them for $7, $8, selling them for 50. We're like, yo, it's crazy. So we would always sell out. Like we'd get batches, sell out, get batches, sell out. And then we were ordering so much that, she pretty much couldn't keep up. She started making mistakes, like instead of a 32, be a 35,
right.
Wrong color. And of course, like now you're throwing it and you're like, dude, what are you doing? And then the final straw came when Giga's brother went out there with his mom one time. And I, if I'm not mistaken, it's like, I think he mentioned what we were selling it for.
Okay.
And the lady was like, all right, triple the rates, whatever, that was the end of that. But it was kind of like, to me, the inside of like, I always try to figure out like what people wanted and give that to them. Now, sometimes that turned into, the wrong thing, right? Because it's like, I went from doing that to we'd like rob and steal and like do a lot of, by the time I was like 13, 14, breaking into cars, stealing people's wallets, doing even dumber shit like, stealing cars. And that turned into, selling drugs by the time I was like 15 going on 16. And that happened for me. It was like when I was actually a friend of mine. We used to play street ball with him. Became a close friend, and we kind of heard through the grapevine that he was connected and could get stuff. And one day we're driving, and he's like, hey man, like, you want to make a bunch of money? Now, of course, you're asking me that question. That's obviously like the magic, right, question. Right. It's like saying, hey, you want to lose 40 pounds? Yes. And so, I was like, absolutely. So he's like, all right, look, so this is what I do. Kind of let me in on it. Sell ecstasy, and he's like, I'll give it to you without you ever having to pay me, like until you don't sell it. Which is, by the way, like that's not normal, right? I mean, for majority of the time. Also, I would get it at rates that like where literally there was no middleman, right? He was the top dog. He was very, very undercover, but he was the top dog. And I remember, man, like I went to the first, back then, this is like the time, this is the peak of rave, right, in Europe. Rave parties, hangars, thousands of people, you name it, right? And I went to, and I knew some of my friends would go to rave parties. They love rave. And I was like, man, you guys go to rave parties? Yeah. I was like, okay, so what if, man, if I supplied you with some e-pills for free, could you guys connect me? You know, and they were absolutely. I mean, this is like business marketing 101. You know, like back in the day, you know. And so I would go to my first rave party, and man, in like 2.5 hours, I sold 330 pills, sold out, because they were just like, hey, that's my guy, and I was under. I mean, I legitimately was, because I got a better price than everybody. I could sell for less, you know, and I was just selling out. And I mean, that night, it was like I came home, you know, with more money than my mom made in a month working at the bank, right? Like literally, I'd go to school just as much as I need to. Every summer I had to redo, you know, and it wasn't because I couldn't make that shit happen. It was just like, for me, I would have been a kid with ADD. Like today, they would have been like, dude, you need every pill there is possible, you know, and so I practiced basketball like fucking 4 or 5 hours a day or more, you know, go to school for a couple hours, I'd show up at other people's schools, and it's just like, phone, sell, you know, go to parties, whatever, and you know, and it went from that. We went from E to LSD to then we'd go to coke, and it's like, I mean, you know, I was never Tony Montana, but like at that age, I mean, like, you know, I was put it this way, I came to school with a Motorola activated voice phone, like on my brother, you know, and it's just like people are like, what the fuck, you know, gold ring. I mean, I still got pictures I can show you to be like, what is going on? Like gold rings, gold yellow chains, you know, the whole spiel. But
well, let me ask you about the mindset then, because you hear, you know, I know you now and people know you now as someone who has such an undying belief in yourself that you can make it, you know, obviously running this incredible legitimate business, but you know, you might hear from Jay-Z, or you'd hear from Big or Nas or somebody, or Puffy, who grew up in that kind of atmosphere. And we understand that because that's in the US. So over there, at that time, did you think there was like a sense of hopelessness where you couldn't live that lifestyle and make that kind of money in a legitimate business?
Well,
or you're too young to even consider it?
You know, the funny thing is like, honestly, at that point in time, the only other alternative for me, like I don't even think that I was thinking, could I not make it any other way? For me, it was like, I'm going to play pro ball.
Yeah.
I'm selling dope.
Yeah.
And then you go, you know, it's a very interesting thing, you know, about how environment triggers your thought process and behaviors. Because I look back now and I was willing to do things that I never think I would do.
Right.
You know, I don't think even now, you know, it doesn't cross my mind in any type of normal way. But I mean, I was like, you know, you talk about pulling out guns on people and, you know, doing crazy stuff. And I mean, like, you know, I did these things, and it's like, I'm not like saying that to be like proud or anything like that, but you know, when you're in an environment, I mean, I would be, you know, sitting with like really high up people, crazy. I mean, stuff that, you know, the movies are made about these people. You know, and you're sitting there, like, you have to become that. Like, you just shift, right? You can't show up like you would with your friends playing basketball. Like, you're there, and it's like, man, it's business, and like your mind goes on to like, oh man, can we get like 7,000 pills and ship them back? You know, that's how you think, right? Yeah. And so I was stuck. How
much did that shape your kind of your hustle and your business mindset that you have today? How big of an influence was that?
A lot. When I look back at it now, it was a lot. And the thing is, like, I mean, at the end of the day, there's two things that really drive you, right? There's desire of pleasure, or, you know, the desire to get away from pain. I don't care. I mean, that's really at our foundation, right? Like, so when I look back, I mean, there was a desire, right? And I had all of that time. I know when I look back now, I was chasing significance. Mm-hmm. You know, whether it was always, you know, because I was the youngest brother, I was the smallest kid in ball. Like, you know, when you're in the Balkans, like, I mean, I'm pretty much like, everybody's taller than me, you know, everybody, like, you know, genetically I wasn't super gifted. I wasn't the worst, but I definitely was nowhere near the best. I was kind of like that lukewarm, shitty middle that anybody hates. But like, you know, and it's like, on top of that, it's like my mom was, you know, always like, oh, look at the neighbors, you know, they got you know, they're going to law school and this and that. Like, nothing was ever good, you know what I mean? Like, everybody was always better. And my pops wasn't around. And my pops was a big supporter, and he was hustling, trying to make the best life for us, you know, working in England, which is obviously, you can make a lot more money than working in Slovenia. So it's kind of like this, you know, my brothers, I have two older brothers, both of them at peak points in time, like when I was 15 or 16, Matei moved over to England, played soccer, right? So boom, he's gone. My older brother went to New Zealand for like a 2-year stint, played rugby work. So me and my mom are like already like this, you know, and I'm just like, you know, I mean, you talk about like, hey, be at home, like, fuck, like, I'll do whatever the fuck I want, right? So basically, it's like this drive for significance, right? Like, and like, how can you be significant? Well, I have money, I have positioning, you pull out a wad of cash in front of the girls, you got gold rings, you playing ball, like, I'm rapping, blah, all these different things, right? Also, like, hey, what's the fastest way to put yourself in power? Bam, I'm powerful now, right? Like, and it's all obviously bullshit, it's all surface, like, it's just a protective mechanism against stuff. But when I look back now, for a long time, that's what was driving me. Even when I started becoming successful in fitness, I never really dealt with that, and it was what led to also, I certainly believe that's what led to my divorce, and what led to a lot of other things in my life that kind of fell apart. Is this search for significance? You know what I mean? I gotta have this.
Yeah.
I gotta be, hey, I make a ton of money. Like, hey, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me. And I think ego is natural, but if it gets out of control, that's what happens. And I try to, kind of fulfill something empty inside of me by, either selling drugs and having money, or even just like, I can even remember as, like I'd have a girlfriend when I was younger, and it's like you try to hide stuff, but it's just like, hey baby, I just gotta make a quick stop, and it's like take out the 20 grams of coke and we walk out, what's that? Oh my God. Like, dude, this is all like shit that we do to make ourselves feel better, Now,
how much of it was you being rebellious against maybe what your mom expected or wanted?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What is rebellion, right? Like, rebellion is like us and us and them, like separation,
Mm-hmm.
like, well, you're like this and I'm here, I'm different, right? And I think different is another kind of good word
to this day, that's one of the things you and I have in common, and always drives us. Like, we want to be doing what everyone else isn't doing, or trying to.
Absolutely.
Like, you're not gonna, even if it's guaranteed, you're not gonna go into it.
No, and I don't think it's a bad
your
thing.
Own path. No,
I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that, like, I had a client, Amy Africa, back in the day, and she said, look, you got these boxes you plug your energy into. And he's like, man, you had a box that was like a criminal box, And then you took that, like, and this was like wired like a motherfucker, right? And you pulled it out, and then you had to put it somewhere else, and you put it into, basketball and fitness, right? And then now it's like, now this box still lives. Now, what I mean by this is, okay, like, if somebody came and was like, hey, Luka, we got a ton shipment of coke, like, we need to get it, here, there, and the other, like, payouts this much, right? And most people would be like, what? My brain will still go like, maybe we could, and I'm like, what am I doing, right? But it's like, because it's that underlying, pattern of, like, the same thing, alcoholism or whatever else. Like, you have to fight these things.
Yeah.
I have stories where I was still like, doing well, and I would literally for a moment lapse and be like, making deals on like criminal stuff. I'm like, dude, what the fuck? I would literally have to stop myself. Like, what are you doing, dude? Right? And so it's like, the more good that you do, the more of a new pattern you have, the more you override that old pattern. But it's still there, So that's why alcohol and AA is like, hey, don't have a drink again, right? Like, but what ended up happening is, at a certain point in time, and I know I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but I think this is important, that at a certain point in time, I never looked at myself in the mirror and felt good about that, right? You don't come home and go like, sold 120 pills today, like, hey, I just robbed that. Like, you just don't, right? So obviously there's some type of shame and guilt around that too. And there was a certain point in time where I was like, man, like, I want to tip the scales, whether you fucking want to call it karma, or you want to call it, God or the universe, or whatever it is for anybody else. Like, for me, it was just like maybe good and bad, the scale of good and bad. Who am I in this world? And I was like, man, I really want to tip this scale, that when I leave this earth, the scale is so far tipped on the good side, and I help people and I make people's lives better. And I had this daily, like, legitimate, like, this purpose to do that. I felt bad about, like, I'm like, man, is like this really who I'm gonna be? Or I'm gonna tell the story of like how I fucking, did this cool thing selling dope, like, and that's what I think attracted me to fitness, because like, even when I was playing pro and I started training people and I didn't make any money from it, the feeling that I would get after I would help someone, or like when people were like, yo, that was the dopest session, man, and like they would start, texting me and going like, man, like, hey, I'm stronger, like things that other people would never do before. It gave me, it was like an addiction. It was a high, right? It was a pleasure, and I wanted more of that pleasure. And I could connect that and go like, hey, when I do that and I go home and look at myself in the mirror, I feel good about myself. And I think that, there's a lot of lessons learned. Like, if we broke it down, I went to college, obviously to play ball, but I did business management. I did minor in exercise science and kinesiology, but it was like, I learned marketing and accounting, and 95% of what I learned doesn't mean shit, But I was like, man, I think I had an advantage because I was doing, when you talk about supply and demand and you talk about marketing, connecting with clients, I mean, it sounds crazy, man, but I was the neighborhood drug dealer that was like, cool. Like, I wasn't threatening you and stuff. I was like cool with everybody. I was doing the same shit I'm doing here. Yeah. But it's like now I'm selling something that like actually really truly does transform people's lives. But I was already doing it then, right? And so when it came for me to do anything, like my brother's like, I'm going to Brazil, run my company. Like I would make that shit happen. And now I'm selling translation services. My dad's like, hey, I want you to oversee the project management of this cross frame table for a big company, that design company in England. I'm driving out doing that while I'm doing 2 practices a day. I mean, like, I did, I worked in warehouses, and had the most chips put into the fucking Epson printers, right? Like, I took these virtues and put them into all these other areas. And so I just think that, like, it just depends on where you put it. They're not, trying to stand out. It's not a bad thing, being different, trying to attain power. If you use it for good, not a bad thing, right? Yep. All good things. I just think it's like, where do you plug it in? You know what I mean? And I don't regret any of it. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm proud of some things, but I also go like, well, what if you took those things away? Am I the Luka that I am today? And
right.
Oh man, and it's like even probably about 5 years ago, I'm never saying this on camera. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm feeling guilty and shameful about cheating, selling drugs, pointing a gun at somebody, like all these different things. Like I would never share them. But the thing is, these are the lessons that I think that help people transform more. Because it's like, and I've had people like judge me, persecute me. Oh man, you did that, and I'm like, yeah, but that's who I was. Like now I'm here. Like what I would like for you to consider is like the transformation, and that shows other. That's why I love working with kids in the scholarship program we're starting, because the kids are like, well, what do you know? And I'm like, let me tell you a story, right? Yeah. And they go like, oh shit. But now the wisdom is coming from a place of where I understand them. Like, man, I was there. I understand where you're coming from. Like, I get you. Like, I don't even think you're an idiot or you're stupid, like other people might tell you that you are. But let me paint you a different picture and a perspective, and consider it. Just suspend your disbelief for a second right here. And then slowly you can start, changing their mind. But if you're coming in with like, oh, this is my background, you're a dumbass, like this is not good for you. Fucking nobody's listening to that, right? So you use your scars, you use your story, you use your pain, you use the challenges, and share the lessons and the wisdoms, and that's what helps people transform. And I think that, I was talking to Dax one time, and somebody asked him, because Dax used to train like princes and celebrities and all these different things, and I mean one piece of advice was a good piece of advice. Is how'd you get those people to coach with you? Like, do you have to be the best trainer? And it's like, well, no, man. Like, you have to be interesting too. Like, they have to be able to have conversations with you that matter. And so to do that, you have to do shit. You have to travel and read and go to seminars and lessons and do stuff. And I'm not gonna go ahead and say like, look, go sell a bunch of dope so you have a story. Yeah. But it means like, hey, like, put yourself out there, risk, experience, live life. You know what I mean? Because now you have more to share, right? Versus
nobody wants to read a book about a guy who just gets up and goes to work every day and does the same thing ad nauseum.
That's what I'm saying, dude. I mean, shit, dude, if I told you, look, you play video games, right? When you were younger, right? If I gave you a video game, I said, listen, grab this controller, all you gotta fucking do is press this green button and just press forward, and you get through the game, you win. You'd be like, dude, get the fuck out of here. I'm not playing that game. The game sucks. But you go, you go in and you get to the boss kills you. Fuck, you come back, boss kills you, 7th time you beat the boss, you get the extra life, the supercharger, whatever, right? Guess what? There's another boss. This is life. You know what I mean? I think that life is inherently a game, and the goal is to get the best at playing the game of life, right? And if people looked at it, and I was home for Christmas and playing video games with the kids, And I think it was my nephew that was like, I was playing like Call of Duty or some shit like that, and I'm playing the game, and I'm like, yo, where you going? Let's complete this level. And he's like, oh, I'm going where the explosions are at. That's where all the fun is at. That's where you get better. I had to pause the game because I was like, man, that's like some deep wisdom right there, right? Like, why would you just go through the game just to get to the game? Yeah. Where he's like, no, this is where the challenge and the fun is, and this is where I get better. So when I take on something, I was at home, like some nights crying, like, do I made a good life for myself. I'm secure with money and this, that, and the other. Like, do I go buy this building, which had every shit show waiting to happen? But I was like, okay, but what's pulling me? Like, what's pulling me is this bigger vision, this legacy, this risky thing, right? This new boss. And I took it, and I put, literally, like, I risked everything that I built to that point in time into this. But the thing is, now I'm beating that boss. You know what I mean? Like, and trust me, we had a lot of bosses that I failed at, sometimes every day, sometimes every week. But now I'm playing I feel like I'm playing a game. I'm alive. Even if everything were to fall apart, I ask myself, like, man, if everything goes to shit, like, can I live with that because I went after it? And one, can I rebuild it because of the hustle, the heart, and the knowledge that I've attained, right? And to me, it's like, that's always going to be the question. Like, there is, it sounds foo-foo, but there's something that's pulling you. And I can't get up in the morning to work for another 50 grand or another 100 grand. Like, that does not, like, excite me. Not to say that I don't want to be financially better off, but only if that money is coming from the work that I do that fulfills, like, this, North Star that I'm chasing. And like I said, like, for people that are there, they'll understand. For people that are not, like, I encourage you to keep working, because purpose isn't found, it's forged through fucking, the fires of hard work and finding yourself through doing stuff. And you get to that point where you start going, like, man, fuck another 10 grand. Like, I'll work for 4 years making zero more, but then down the line, because I'll do great work for people and change their lives, I'll make an extra million or whatever, right? Like, and so that's my mentality. And I know kind of loops back to, how I feel about my past. But it's also what, every single one of those things took me to the next thing. To get away from doing what I was doing, because things were getting, like, very, let's just say, spicy. I ended up making the decision to go to college, and it happened through when I went to Eastern Invitational basketball. It was like the basketball academy in Trenton, New Jersey. We went with the team, with our Slovenian team. Did really well there. And the coach, one of the guys that was coaching my team, Wayne Jones, was like, have you ever thought about going to college in the States? And I was like, not really. I'm going to go pro. I'm pro. Like, I'm already pro. Like, I'm the guy, blah, 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 right? And he's like, all right, just, think about it, man. Like, so this was my last year, essentially, kind of. Actually, I was out of high school because I went to high school early. And all I was doing was playing ball and, like, working. And that year, shit went, like, I was also still selling dope and a lot of it. And a lot of things happened from, all of a sudden I'm starting to see, like, pages of, like, reports with phone conversations, like, word for word what I was saying. So we were bugged, and, and like, people were getting robbed. I was getting threatened. I mean, like, by, people that you have to pay attention to. And, like, fucking now all of a sudden it's, I'm looking over my shoulder all the time. And so throughout that year, Wayne kept in touch with me. Said, look, man, fly out to Denver, train with me for 2 weeks. Let's go back to Eastern and, like, have your best round, dude. And, like, you could get, a scholarship. And I ended up doing that. And, this is end of July is where we're back in New Jersey for 2 weeks back to back. I play great. I get Western Michigan, Quinnipiac, Delaware State. They're all like, man, we love your game. And we would love you to come on board. But, of course, I know nothing about college scholarships at this point in time. I'm like, great. What do I do? Right? It's like, well, there's no more scholarships this year. You got to walk on. Fuck it, I'll walk on. And it's like, okay, every one of those schools is like 40,000 plus, right? My dad's like, yeah, no bueno. And so one of the coaches that year said, listen, man, like, I played and then coached at a school in upstate New York. He's like, man, you can't get a full ride. It's a D2 and so on and so forth. But, you can get some money and it's cheap, and it's like, but you'll play. And I came back August 3rd, and basically, like, August 3rd, I came back, started doing the paperwork, embassy, the whole shebang. Couldn't go out earlier than September 11th. So I made this, like, life decision, fuck it, I'm out, in a very, very short amount of time. Flew out on September 11th, on the September 11th.
Crazy.
And my flight was supposed to land 20 hours, sorry, not 20 hours, like 40 minutes after the towers got hit. In New York, we flew around until we ran out of gas, and then landed in Nova Scotia. And I was in Nova Scotia in a military camp for a week, then drove to upstate New York to Binghamton. That was the beginning of my college career. Was there for 2 years. Went to Southern Virginia for 2, full ride, and from there ended up going to play pro overseas. So I mean, and like I said, there's so many underlying stories that sometimes, you know, people are like, there's a lot of shit going on. I'm like, yeah, it's been a full life, right? A very colorful life. But every single one of those, because I've had so, like, even through that process, so many failures that I can't even, you know, I got let down so much because I wanted to go D1, and it's like, oh, you couldn't go D1. So now I'm in junior college, not even D1 JUCO. Then I went to D2 NAIA school, you know, versus like, hey, I'm better than this, I could play in the NBA. You know, worked through that, did, you know, was the all conference, all region team, all these different things. You know, then thought nothing was gonna happen, hustled my balls off, played NBA Summer Pro League. Then, you know, went to play in Ukraine, you know, which was a really good team. Everything was on up and up. You know, didn't know anything about, didn't even have an agent then. You know, left that team, actually got replaced by Rodney Buford from the Sixers. I'm with no team, signed for Kutka, you know, played for Kutka, don't get paid my last 3 months of the contract because the team was without money. Ended up playing my last year of pro ball, literally not getting paid almost the whole year, right? Practicing twice a day, 2.5 hours a day, coaching people in between. I mean, it's like if you know, wrote the list, it was just like failure, identity crisis, you know, when I decided to not continue ball anymore, where I was like, man, this fitness thing, like I feel something for it. I just don't want to be, like, I just never wanted to be good at something. You know, I could continue to play ball. I got an offer from, you know, Portugal for Division II. And at that point in time, I was married, and I'm like, do I want to, you know, hey, go to Portugal with me, and then after this year, maybe we'll go to Belgium and Germany. You know, I didn't even want that. It wasn't even about just her. I didn't want that for myself, right? I just wanted to be like, I want to do something that I'm going to be the best in the fucking world at, you know. And no matter what you say, like in ball, there is some restrictions, like height and whatever, you know. And I think, I mean, I made it further than anybody by pure fucking hard work and will. I mean, and you still go back, you know, back home and ask people. And you got, you know, my friend who was a scout for the Portland Blazers. He was the national team coach for under 20, and you know, a lot of these guys. And you'll go like, hey, listen, man, who's the hardest working person you ever? And they're like, oh man, there's this one guy, he's a nutcase, you know, Luka Hocevar. And you know, so I think you can overcome a lot of the things that you don't have with just pure fucking work. You know, I mean, there really is nothing else. You know what I mean? And
talk about the decision to hang it up. Was that tough for you? To say I'm not going to play ball anymore?
It absolutely was tough. Like fitness helped me, right? So there was.
Yeah. You were kind of excited about going into the next thing at that point.
Yeah, and it's like I realized, you know, that like I started lifting weights when I was 14. My mom opened the gym. I don't think I've shared this in a couple of places, but she basically would work in the bank, and with her friend open a gym, she'd work, you know, come home at like 4, be at the gym at 4:35, and then work till like 11. And there's this like 1,500 square foot gym at the top of this building called Partizan. It was like in Slovenia, you'd have like, you know, physical education facilities, right? Mm-hmm. And so she got the spot there. And what was cool is that I got like mentored by a national power lifter. There's 2 guys that were like literally world class, like gold medalists in the Olympics. They were winning medals like on the horse. So Elias Began, and like they were doing gymnastics. They had a little shitty gym at the bottom, but they were like world champions. And they would come up and lift, and I talked to them.
Wow.
And so, you know, and when I started lifting weights made me become the strong kid in the basketball court, right? Because I was like, you know, and it's like it helped me jump higher, and like I started going like, oh shit, this is dope, you know, and so I got hooked on that. So there was this underlying story of me and fitness that starts like really early, and you know, I would train. By the time I was 16, I would go and you know, I bugged my coach, and I was like, hey man, like I want to get faster, I want to jump higher, I got to dunk it, I got to do this, that, and the other. And so he knew this guy named was Srđan Đorđević, fucking hard to say, but he trained Marilyn Adi in her later days. Brigitte Buko. So we're talking about this guy trained Olympians, right? Like top track and field coach. And the guy was like, man, like, you know, if this kid, you know, it's kind of like if his kids wants to come early in the morning at fucking 6:30, whatever, man, you can train with us.
Yeah.
There I am, you know, every morning, like 2-3 days a week, I'm showing up before school, and I'm training, you know, and I'm learning. I mean, I'm learning from the top guy, you know, in probably not just Slovenia, like the Balkans, on speed development and like CNS and like all this stuff, and like, you know, sled pulls and like plyos, and I'm doing all this stuff, right? And I read the Speed Trap when I was like, I don't know, fucking 17. I was reading Verkhoshansky and Zetsursky and Tudor Bompa and Mel Sif, not because I wanted to be a strength coach, it's because I just wanted to be better. I wanted to have the unfair advantage over other players, you know, and that spurred this kind of educational, like, you know, in school you're made to read, but in, you know, and I didn't want to read, right, Dostoevsky and fucking write essays, but then when I was able to read, you know, like T Nation and Elite FTS, I'm like, dude, that's where I found out about you first, and like Cressy and Mike Robertson. I'd read, at one point in time, I read 3,500 articles on those two sites.
Damn.
And then bought everything there was to buy, every product, everything. I was obsessed. But I'm not thinking about that because I'm like, I want to be the best basketball player, I want to be in the NBA. But that's where all this started. It's also why I took exercise kin as a minor, because not because I wanted to have it, it's because, oh shit, like we're gonna go through anatomy, we're gonna learn this and PT and like all these, you know, our athletic trainer at VI played for the Bulls, you know, before he became that. So like for me, it was just like, how can I learn? So that underlying story, you know, kind of led to, I was always the guy that people would ask for, hey Luka, man, how do I get stronger? You know, when I was in college, because I was always in the fucking weight room, you know, weight room, shooting shots, doing my drills. And so there was this story behind that. And when, you know, I was kind of like found out about Pavel like really long time ago, early 2000s, started doing kettlebell training. And this was all like, man, I want to get better at ball, And so even though there was like, when I started going like, I don't know if I want to continue with ball. I love it, but also, you know, the pro side of things really dampened my passion for it because it becomes so, you know, you think about it, man, like you're getting crushed, the coach will talk shit, you're not even getting paid, you know, the culture of teams wasn't the way that I wanted to. But I was playing street ball, like I was in the Nike Battlegrounds finals, like, I mean, I was literally one of the top, I'm gonna say I was the top one, but, you know, 1-on-1 players in the country. I was loving it, you know, not getting paid much or anything. It was just like the passion. As soon as I'd go to the team, you know, bickering, this, that, the other, you know, and I think that kind of made me go, fuck, man, do I really want this, you know, the way that I used to? And so then there is definitely this, like, because at that point in time, the personal training industry is pretty much almost non-existent in our country. I'm training people. I'm actually writing programs for our basketball team, helping my brother with the soccer team, like all this stuff, right? And I'm really good at it. Like I really like understand this stuff, right? And but at the same time, I'm like, well, I don't know if I can make money here. Like, who am I if I'm not this person that, like, for the last 15 years dedicated like every waking fucking moment almost of my life to this sport, right? And so it's
hard to lose your identity.
Oh,
for sure.
So, I mean, it's hard to explain. I remember when I was even like, Aaron back then flew out to Ukraine, and when I was let go, right? Of course, like, I mean, you think about like working so hard, making it like, oh man, this is about to be great, you know, and at the point in time when you get let go, NBA player comes to replace you, it's like, man, am I worth it? Like, man, am I ever gonna make it? You know, I mean, there's so many things, and this sport is so volatile, right? Like, where you get injured, you're doing great, you're out for 6 months. People don't want to smell you anymore. Oh, that guy's injury prone, paying 50% less. You know, you got one season at the end of the season, unless you're fucking LeBron or some, like, you know, there's a small percentage of people that are like, wow, you can do whatever. But even those guys, man, if they're out for 2 seasons, like, right? I mean, it's very, very volatile, and people don't see that. And it's tough, you know, the season ends, I got no contract. Man, agent, hustling, talking to coaches. I'll go try out anywhere, fucking fly here, fly there. I mean, it is a challenging life full of uncertainty. And I mean, I'm so glad that I made the decision that I did, because I see people that I used to play with that were legends, you know, and now I'm like, man, like I feel bad almost because they played for so long because they didn't want to face what other life there is. Then now it's just like, I'll play anywhere for anything, you know, no savings, no this, no that. And it's just like, you hate to see people that were influenced you or like you were inspired by to be that way, you know. And for me, that was like that point where I was like, I don't want to be that. Like, I don't want to be like, hey, remember when I could dunk it and when I played, but rather like create something that helps people so I can tilt that scale that I was talking about before and, you know, create a legacy. And it's like the feeling that I got, you know, and when I look back, like I was always the guy. Like, so the irony of it is Giga, which I mentioned to you, like he's the friend of mine that like runs the facility in Slovenia is Giga, my friend Marco, who also played ball with me, my brother, and another guy, Gregor. So like they called us the Bulldogs, right? Because we'd always lift weights and we played D so hard that people were just fucking scared of us, you know. And you look at that and you go like, man, it was always there. Like that was our thing. we would get everybody riled up. Like people that didn't want to lift weights would fucking start lifting weights because we would like just go ape shit. I mean, it was just like crazy, right? Like we had that already back then. And I realized that like I had this thing inside of me that was a leadership thing, and it was getting people fired up and inspired, and I really knew my shit. But I never allowed it to grow because of this. And you know, we talked about the fuck your dream, right? Like part of it was like, hey, Luka, fuck your basketball dream, man. Like this is who you're meant to be, you know what I mean? But I think you gotta find that. You don't find that shit sitting on the couch. I had to go through, you know, basketball gave me so much. It gave me discipline, work ethic, communication with team, you know, teamwork, like all these different things that now, you know, people go like, oh man, how do you work so hard? Dude, I've been working this hard since I can remember, you know. It becomes who you are. It's not what you do, it becomes who you are. And that's the thing is like, I see so many people, I'm sure like you get the question, like, Jay, how do I find my purpose? Jay, you know, how do I do this, that, and the other? And I'm like, you will not find it unless you've worked your fucking ass off. And you might have to do it at something you don't even like, but that's gonna lead you to something that you understand, that you love better. You know what I mean? You can't sit there and go like, I'm really passionate about this, now I'm gonna jump into this, right? And so when I look back, it's like there is no Vigor ground without the failures, without the basketball, without the drugs, without the, you know, everything else that happened. And I, you know, everybody has their story, and everybody's story is amazing, right? I mean, you have your scars, you have your stuff, and it's like that's what makes you who you are. It's like the scars of, you know, kings and queens, man. Like it's the foundation. And so use that and just know that at any fucking point in time, you can change that story and write a new story. Because I did. I've written it over and over again. You've written it over and over again, man. Like, you know, and it's like today, if we go like, we keep talking like, I do, we're gonna, you know, do this and that and the other. Yeah, like we're basically sitting down and we're directing our own script of our fucking life. And there's nothing that can stop you and me from going like, all right, let's go do this. Now, it might take 5 years longer than we want, or it might, you know, be 10 times more money or effort or whatever, and 100 times more failures. But if we want to go and, you know, complete that script and make that movie, we can do it. You know what I mean? Like Pixar does, they said Pixar does 19 like or something like that rewrites of the whole fucking movie, right? Because the first one is shit. So the one you see, you go like, you know, I just saw The Incredibles. Oh, it's phenomenal, right? Well, at the beginning, that was a complete piece of shit, right? But they had to rewrite it. The problem is that most people, they try to redo it one time, the second time, third time, like, give up. It's not for me, right? But the thing is like, man, you want to do it, rewrite it 18 fucking times, and you have a masterpiece. And it's gonna take longer than you think. It's gonna be harder than you think. You're gonna hurt. There's gonna be pain. You know what I mean? All that stuff. And it's like, without it, honestly, you wouldn't even appreciate it. Like if you told me what you wanted today, and I fucking gave it to you, you'd be like, oh, great. Right? It's done. Like next day you probably fuck it up because it doesn't matter to you. When I sold dope, I would make the money, dude. I would like, I could burn it and not feel anything. Like, let's go, whatever, right? Man, I worked in a warehouse the whole summer, like crazy. Even while I was making dope money, I didn't touch that because that money was like, no, dude. I remember what I did for that shit, right? And so it's the same here now. Like, I work really hard for everything that I have. But I'm like, okay, like where I'm gonna put this, because I worked hard for it. Let me create something more from it, right? Versus just like, and that's the thing is when people get it easy, it's actually the worst thing that can happen to you is that you fucking have it easy. It's the worst thing that can happen to you. So when you have it hard, man, get excited. Get excited. That's like now it's like when shit gets hard, I sit down and I'm like, all right, this is gonna be a great story. It's gonna be, you know, nobody's having it this hard. I want it to be harder because then nobody's gonna go through this. I'm gonna go through this and they're not, you know. And so you use all of this stuff as a competitive advantage and to drive you in the direction of that, you know, that North Star, I think.
All right, so we are here at the original spot that you opened up in 2008.
Yep, 2008.
Yeah.
My timeline gets so fucked up, but it's 2008 because I know it was in a recession.
1,000 square feet.
1,000 square feet, 1 Burnett Avenue South. I mean, shit, I wish, because right now it's like it's a car garage, which is what it was before that. I kind of wish it was open so you could see. I mean, this place was rugged, man, but it's like, you know, we put the graffiti in, and it had its own feel. I also had some black mold, which now I can say on camera probably, because I was wiping that shit down like with, but I think people got like really, really good health from immunity to adaptation to that.
Well, that's why you never get sick.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, this was the first gym in America, right? Because we started in, actually we went from the woods to a small space in Slovenia before I moved here, and then obviously that gym over there had its own journey. Is now, I would say it's recognized as #1 kind of like functional training gym, as much as I hate that word, in the country. But when I came here, I had to start from scratch, big box gyms, and this was the first spot. But dude, for the 3 years that we were here, there was no signs. Like I never put a sign up. So like people would be like in front of here going like, "Fuck is this gym?" And I'd roll up the door like, "Hey, what's up, man?" And they'd be like, some people would be like, "What the fuck is going on?" Suspect. Right. But this was it, man. Like this became like a cult, a cult gym. It was like all graffitied inside. We did all graffiti. I still got pictures and stuff, but it's like it goes.
I've seen pictures of it.
And it's like, and it has like, there's like too many bathrooms, like Superman bathrooms, like, you know what I mean? You gotta change and shit. It's really not a bathroom. It's just like a door and there's a toilet. That's it. And then I had a table in the back. It was long and it kind of had a dividing wall, but it wasn't really divided. It was still open. Yeah. So we did like. There was no turf, dude. I couldn't afford turf, so we had carpet, like straight up fucking black carpet. Yeah. And then mats, and then I had $4 or $5 grand worth of like the stuff I brought from like LA Fitness and Vision Quest. Yeah. I put it in here, and then we got like a super old used rack, like the.
So prior to opening this in 2008, you were just training people around here.
I was training out of 2 big box gyms. First LA Fitness, and then from there I went to this place called Vision Quest, which ended up. I helped them like develop a lot of stuff there. Like, I think I guarantee we're the first big box gym where I was like, hey, let's do boot camps, but let's put them on EFT, so on recurring revenue inside of a big box gym. And they said, that's no way. Yeah. So you're saying somebody's gonna pay $19, and then you're saying pay $95 on top of that for 2 boot camps a week. And I was like, yeah. And they were like, that's not gonna work. And I was like, it'll work. And it worked. And then what happened, because 2008 was the recession, right? Like,
but wait, so how did you do it? Like you were charging the 99? No, the gym was.
I ended up getting like, I made a deal with Chip there, and we kind of got I got a percentage of it. Yeah. They didn't, part of it was too like, this guy's kind of crazy, but all right, well, let's see what happens, right? Yeah. And I think we opened with like 60 people in it, and then it kept growing. But see, the thing is, what they did is in the recession, they killed it. They were buying out gyms for pennies on the dollar, ended up getting to 14 gyms sold to LA Fitness for like 40 million, 39 million, something like that. Yeah. Over time. But so I went from LA Fitness to Vision Quest, and I was at Vision Quest while I opened this. Okay. Right? So I would come in here in the morning, I'd get up at 4:45, I have a 5:45, boot camp, run another one, train a couple people, head out to Vision Quest, start there at like 8 or 9, do a 12-hour day of training, come back here, train myself, train athletes, study, write blog posts, go to sleep at 2, wake up at 4:45, and I did that for a long time.
You're still doing that? Yeah.
Kind of, sort of. I'm doing it while still doing the sleep, but then.
So wait, let me ask you. So in 2008, when you had that vision, like we're gonna put all these people on EFT. Because now I know you read 50 business books a week, but like, was that the same? Was that the case back then, or what was your level of like? Were you going to a bunch of business workshops and reading a ton of books?
I was already, like, when I was still in Slovenia, just to give a little bit of, like, we started our first gym in Slovenia, I think 12 years ago now. So like about 12 years ago, something like that. And it was just a room and whatnot. But I was already, like, back then, I was playing, I was playing pro ball. Yeah. Like, when my brother would go to Brazil, I'd run this translation agency. And I was like, hey, listen, man, don't pay me, just pay for this. It was called Trainers Inner Circle. It's like Pat Rigsby's thing, right? Okay. And then I did Boot Camp Blueprint. So I was already like, yeah, whatever, man. I'll just use that money, pay for my bunch of education. And so I was learning about recurring revenue, right? And in Slovenia, there's no way you could ever do that, by the way. We had a tough time 2 years ago getting recurring billing going in the gym. It's still difficult. Yeah, but we have it now. So I learned about that, right? And but everywhere you'd go, gyms would have it, like other stuff would have it, but personal training businesses back then were just like sessions. And I was like, man, we got to start changing that. And I literally within 4 months of opening my spot, I started doing recurring. And it was a little bit of a transition because everybody was so used to in personal training. Totally, boot camps, just like pay and then pay again. Yeah. And then the 4 weeks is over, the 6 weeks is over, pay again, whatever, right?
Which is the worst.
Which is the worst ever. Yeah, I mean, and it's like, here was what was happening. The first 4 months, I had people on recurring billing, but I was running everybody through PayPal myself.
Okay.
So I remember when we got to like 70 people here or something like that.
Yeah.
And every month I'm like, fuck. Because then I'd have to sit down and run 70 people, like the address, everything, right? It was massively just stressful.
Yeah.
You know, like when I played ball in Europe, it was like, here's your contract, we're gonna promise you this, but then you wouldn't get the money. It's like, hey. So, you know, the only thing would matter is like, when does it really actually go through? But we were doing things, you know, I think we're the first gym that we're doing semi-private training. And, you know, I got that from Alan Cosgrove way back in the day, did his mentorship program. And I remember the first time we ran a Groupon. Those were the days where it was like, you had 3 days. Remember, it was like the countdown. Groupon would run a promo, and it was like countdown, you know, get it for crazy, like 70% off, and then they'd shut it down. And I remember the first time we ran it, we got 360 people to buy it. Right?
Serious?
And so it's like, it's just me, by the way, right? The first 2 days, I didn't sleep at all. I was answering, I remember the first day I answered 120 calls, emailed 85 people, and I still had 120 voicemails. Yeah. So it's just like, I couldn't even keep up with it. And so people are like, you know, this gym, nobody's getting back to. And it's like, dude, I'm fucking by myself running everything all day long. And it was a very kind of polarizing thing, because I was a nutcase. Like we do like these orientations. Yeah. And I mean, you know, people are bringing kids. I was cursing, doing ninja kicks. So half the people are like, fucking no way I'm coming here.
So I kind of love the story that you were doing everything, because I think there's a huge misconception nowadays when people are starting out and they're like, oh, well, I'm gonna outsource everything, or they just try to take the easy way, where it's like, no, you're not gonna sleep for like the first 2 or 3 years, and you have to do everything. Like, how are you gonna outsource and pay people if you didn't have the money to do it?
You don't have the money
to do everything. You're answering the phone, you're cleaning the toilet, you're training.
Absolutely.
When you can afford to do it, bring somebody in.
But even then, though, like, see, this is the thing. This is the misconception, though. Even then, people go like, well, if you have the money, let me just start it off right away. Yeah. But here's the thing. How do you then know what's good and what's not good? Right. Right? Like, because it's your business, you know, I try to really like care for everybody. Yeah. The high fives, the hugs, the like really paying attention to stuff, right? Like,
yeah, and you do that better than anyone.
And it's but it's like, that's at the core of like the belief system of what I think people should get, right? Sure. Like, and just like how I think people should be treated. Now, if you start the business and go like, cool, okay, I'm coaching, but fuck it, like I'm gonna give away, you know, you're gonna answer the calls, you're gonna answer this, you're gonna do that. Yeah. Do those people have those same value systems as you do? Yeah. And if they don't, they won't behave the same way. And so then that becomes a reflection of your business. And right now is a big thing in fitness business, I think, that we're dealing with, because, you know, you got the lead gen company that's like, hey, dude, we'll bring you in leads, right? But what do those people think about you? What happens when you step through the door? What happens even when the phone gets picked up? You know, is it like, hey, Gary, all right, which, you know, it's like, dude, or is it like, hey, what's going on, man? I'm so excited to like hear from you. Hey, I heard that, you know, I read your application form, man. Hey, you love basketball too, I do too. What's your favorite team? Like, just shit that's just like at the core of who we are as human beings. And so I don't give a shit if you get 120 leads a month. I mean, first of all, like, what if only 20 people sign up? What happened with the other 100? Where they like, man, that was horrible service. You know, they didn't call me back, right? And these are all these things that people don't think about. And they just think, well, if I get them through the door, then that's all that matters. If I get this application, there's so much more to it. And I think when you start a business, you know, like when I did here, where everything was just like, I mean, it was chaos, right? But guess what? Like, I learned about like, hey, what it is to call 100 people a day and answer 80 emails. And the first time I was like, I think it'd be great if I gave them folders, right? And fucking 60 people show up. I spent $1,400 on creating these folders with everything in it. And I was like, well, if I do that, I'm gonna go bankrupt, so I can't do that anymore. Now it's gonna be a PDF, you know? And so you go through the process of actually understanding because you're doing it, right? So the true wisdom of it, right? Versus, you know, oh, I'm just gonna hire, like right now, if you get a really, really good customer service rep in Seattle, you're paying $50K, right? Like, please let me know which gym, you know, at a smaller level can afford a $50,000 customer service rep. Dude, like, you know, you're not going to be paying yourself for another 4 years if you do that or more. So all these misconceptions, I think if you start from the ground up, what it does, it forces you to master your craft as a coach, and it forces you to master your craft as a human being. Like, how do I communicate with people? Like, how do I call people back on time? Do I get their programs on time? Do I, you know, send handwritten appreciation cards out? You know, and it's like, I think that you get, to me, it's the same as basketball in Europe, right? It's thousands of reps, right? Like, instead of like, oh, you know, and one, and it's like, and people go like, what's going on? well, man, because I did that fucking, drill so many times, it just became second nature to me.
Yeah.
I was forced to do it. But at the same time, if you don't do that, some people they don't know what they don't know. It's like the unconscious incompetence. You know what I mean? Like, you show it to them, like, oh my God, I didn't even know that. Yeah, because you didn't do it. So at the foundational level, I think it's good that like you develop multiple skills. People say, what's that saying? That like if you're a trade, you try to master all the trades, like you're not a master of any. But I think that's
jack of all trades.
Jack of all trades. But I would say that you need a foundation.
Definitely.
That's like movement, man. Like it's like that's like strength training. I think you need a foundation of everything before you can go, all right, now I'm gonna be more niche and go this and that direction. It's like, people coming out of oh man, I understand periodization charts. I'm like, hey, what's this muscle? Oh, it's the Achilles. Yo, you're fucked. Like, you gotta know some foundational stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so there's a lot of stuff going, because now there's social media, which is great, right? Like, you can communicate better. But these basic skills, like being timely, time management, knowing how to pick up the phone or answer an email in a way that doesn't sound, because you could write an email and the person reading it like, what? I'm never going there, right? Yeah. Just these basic skills, and we were just talking about the other day, like, when it's templated, or if somebody is just like, answering real quick, or if they don't get back to you. I mean, and then you can go like, well, our marketing is not working. Every single gym owner I talk to, right? Nobody gets 0 leads a month. They'll be like, well, I get 6. I'm like, okay, cool, what are you doing with those 6? Right, well, what's the numbers? Well, how many are you converting? How many are you keeping? Right, so like, let's look at like really basic stuff. If you get 6 leads, you convert 4 and only lose 1 a month. That's 3 new people net, times 12. That's 36 new clients. If you charge 250, you just made 100 grand more this year, right? With only 6 leads, right? And you got people getting 30, 40. They got ad companies running through, and they're like, I don't know how we're not growing. And it's like, yeah, there's a much fucking deeper issue going on, and you think you want to spend more money on ads or this, that, and the other, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but it's one piece of the puzzle. And people are like missing the foundations, right? Like you're doing a box squat with chains and tendo units right now, but you can't do a body weight squat well. That's the fucking problem, right? And you're like, I don't know why I got SI joint pain all the time.
Yeah.
So I think there's massive value in, man, getting back down into, what Gary Vee called like clouds and dirt, the dirty work, you know what I mean? And the dirty work is not that dirty. I love it. Like, you come, this is my day, right? I'm training kids, not really getting paid much for it because I love training kids and I know they're low income and I know we're going to be able to do a lot of good stuff with it. But guess what? Every time I'm doing that, I'm improving my craft. Studying the night before, I come in, I tell the story, I do it better. You know what I mean?
And it was super cool to see you doing that because I knew like you were barely getting paid doing that. These are low income kids and you're just doing it to help, doing it to get better at your craft. Because people are like, I mean, you've been doing this so long now that you could be above that, you know what I mean? Just up in the office doing your thing, working on more important stuff. But you're in there in the trenches doing it, which I love.
And I came back, dude, like for 3 years, I still trained people, but I was not on the schedule.
Yeah.
And then I came back on the schedule, and then a lot of people go like, oh, dude, what's going on? And like, you're stressed out. It's like, that. I'm like, no, dude, I want to do this. I realized that, why am I not doing the things that I love doing?
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, and here's what happens. Like, my coaches see me do it. I'm going to do it to the greatest of my abilities. And the standard's going to be set high. And then guess what? That standard drives everybody else. Right? And other thing too.
Because if you're going to ask someone to do something, you have to do it first and show how you want it done. Yeah.
You cannot, you absolutely cannot. I think it's another thing that's not talked about, like business 101, right? But like, to lead others, you have to lead yourself, right?
Yeah.
But seriously, like, how is anybody going to ever follow you if you go like, guys, you got to educate yourself, and then I'm the one that never reads, never goes to anything, right? Now I take that stuff obsessively to the next level where I'm like, I'm reading 100 books or whatever, but the point is that yeah, exactly, you know what I mean? But that's the kicker though. Like, then they get inspired. Like, you're seeing me train, dude. I'm training. I'm eating this way. I'm treating people this way, and I'm not fucking perfect. I dropped the ball, and I admit it. But I see this a lot. People become, the gym's doing great. Mm-hmm. Oh man, great. Now I can be internet lifestyle. Yeah. In 2 years they come back. I don't know what's going on. Everything's falling apart. It's like, man, this is it's not B2B or B2C. It's H2H. It's human to human, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and if people treated it that way, the service businesses, I think every business, but like this even more so, like, you have to be connected, like you really got to be connected. And that doesn't mean that, you can't get to a point. I mean, look, I can leave for a month. I can leave for 2 weeks. I can leave for 3 weeks. Whatever, right? Like, but to believe that I could just completely remove myself, or that I would want to, right?
Yeah.
Why would I create something that I want to remove myself with?
Yeah.
Not, and
well, that's the other weird misconception too, where people are like, you have to get off the gym floor, and I'm like, well, why'd you get into this business?
Exactly. And I mean, maybe,
like if I get into acting, and they're like, you got to get off the set and get up into the office. Why'd
just,
you do this
just be a director. And it's like, well, no, like here's the kicker.
That's why I got into it.
Exactly. And maybe you go from, training 60, 70 hours a week, and you go to 7,
right?
But you're still doing it, right? And and the thing is too, you keep in touch. It's crazy. Like, it's funny. The other day I was talking to somebody that coaches business, right, and fitness, right? And we're having a conversation. I started realizing they have no idea what's happening with training. Like even, I'm like, they'll recommend something, and I'm like, well, what about if it's a 1,600 square foot gym and they got a class like here, and then they got athletes here, and they got some people getting warmed up, and like it was just blank because they couldn't understand conceptually how that works, right? Even program designs, right? Like I'm like, hey, here's our program, small group, and somebody's go like, well, wouldn't it be better? I'm like, sure, it would be better. Now, if you got an hour, and I got another 40 people coming in at 7, I start at 6, I gotta get dynamic warm-ups, ramp, this, that, the other, and I wanna get this out of it, what'd you do? And then all of a sudden they're frozen because they have boundaries, right? And so to me, see, the thing is you can't understand that unless you're there, and you're in some way involved in the process. Or, hey, what about like, you got 30 kids and then like somebody mouths off, somebody's cracking, what do you do? Like, how do you deal with that? See, that's coaching, that's leadership, that's communication, right? And the thing is, but you can go, well, listen, you should just fucking get more leads. Nah, dude, that doesn't work that way, right? In real life, that's not how it works. And so there's a lot of people that do a lot of ways, but for me, man, like, you have to always keep in touch with reality. But I do think that I do think that's true for anything. Even the members, and I've kind of been there, where like I'll get messages like, man, it's so good to have you back, like involved so much, so often. And I feel great about that. And the thing is, I never go, when is this session done? Like I can't wait to get off. Dude, I'm so in it that when it's done, it's like I just came from a blackout. Oh man, okay, cool. Now I got to go do whatever, write a blog.
And you focus on stuff. You run business in a way that is going to lead to, customer loyalty. You focus more on that than new customer acquisition and keeping people around, which a lot of people don't do. They're just like, how can I get more leads? How can I do Facebook ads? You're like, man, people want connection. They want community. And that's what you guys are built. That's what you do such a great job of. So people are going to become a brand advocate and just stay for life.
And so, and I've made that mistake, right? Of like, man, let's grow. But to build a perennial business. So I mean, this is just like some crazy math stuff. Although I hate sometimes, even on content stuff like this, I hate saying like, leads and customer lifetime value. And I get it, like it's a financial thing that you got to understand and what part of your brain. But even when I say it, I kind of feel a little guilty because I'm like, no, that's like, I want to put a name to that person. That's a real person to me, you know what I mean? Like, so I think, that it starts like everybody starts fucking doing metrics. But I'm like, listen, okay, if I get a person in and I help them change their life and I help them continue to build like them as a person, get them to their dream, and instead of them staying 4 months, they stay 4 years, right? Let's look at the numbers of that, right? Like you're making 10 times more revenue. And I would rather think about this, when we look at the next 10 years, there's gonna be some type of recession, a meteor will fall in Renton, some shit will happen, who knows, right? And when it does, like if I continue to have 220 members, for instance, and they're all consistent and we're a tribe and like we do like fucking in The Walking Dead, we build our own little city to protect ourselves, whatever. You know what? That's a perennial business. It's gonna continue to stay, it's gonna live, it's gonna thrive, even if internet goes down, nobody can find you on social media. That's my foundation. My foundation is if internet went down, phone went down, TV, everything collapses, does Vigor Ground both survive and thrive? Just by word of mouth, by pigeons and shit, like whatever, man. Like, you know what I mean? But that's the foundation. Then when you add everything else on top of it, I got my funnels, I got my Facebook ads, I got my social media, I got this, I got email marketing, and I understand all those things. That's just fuel to the fire. But you got to go back to the foundation and the customer experience, because then I would rather have the same amount of members, not gain one for the next 10 years, right? And completely change and help change those people's lives. Then have 400, 150, 220. And it's just like, and people come and go, and you don't have any true like legacy, you don't have any true foundation. And the thing is,
it's unfulfilling for you.
Oh, absolutely, completely, man. Like you're constantly stressed out. Oh, how are we doing? Great month. Oh fuck, we're losing a lot of people. What's it like? It's it's havoc. And so that's my focus, is like, why don't we make it so amazing? Be like,
now, was that most of your business here, was word of mouth? Like, this is before you could afford to do much advertising.
It was
it was word of mouth.
It was word of mouth. Actually, but one thing I did is, and this I think is important too, right? People talk shit about big box gyms, and I don't, you know, even though I didn't kind of agree with the value. I mean, they didn't have these values or whatever else. But guess what, man? Like, there was thousands of people there. All I focused on was like doing a great job with people.
Yeah.
You know, I'd get like reprimanded because I do different sales, because I was like, nah, dude, like, that's not true. I want to bring this person value. Sometimes, you know, a lot of times people couldn't afford stuff, and I'll be like, hey, give me your email, man. I'll just like send you a couple of Word documents with meal plans and different stuff. And they're like, really? And I'd send them stuff, and then like they would like come in like, thanks so much for that, dude. I did the workout. It was great. And I did that for like, you know, LA Fitness for like a year.
Yeah.
And so those people became part of the people that were like, oh, I love your stuff. So I had them on a Google Yahoo group email list.
Okay.
So I didn't have an email list. I didn't have AWeber or any of that.
Yeah.
But like basically every week, or sometimes every couple of weeks, or sometimes a couple of weeks, they're like, hey, here's this cool article, like read this, or I'd write them something, right? So it was email marketing, but really I didn't think of it that way because I didn't understand that. I was just like keeping in touch, right? Like, and people were like, oh, thanks so much. So when I opened this spot, I literally emailed out, said, hey, listen guys, 2-week free trial, you know, I'm opening up boot camps. And all these people that were like, oh dude, this guy really helped me out. I mean, really like the pure foundational kind of idea of word of mouth, right? And I think when we opened, we had a 2-week free trial, 21 people did it, and 14 people signed up right after the 14 days. So 14 people, whatever, you know, 197, and you can do the numbers. Like, we were, you know, I was profitable because I was working full-time, 12, 14-hour days.
Now, how long were you here at this spot?
Almost about three.
And when you closed this spot down, how many clients did you have?
It was probably around 100, I'd say.
Okay.
Something like.
Was it just you at the end still?
I had a coach. So what ended up happening is, like, I just had morning classes because I was working, you know, 6 p.m. or peak times with the big box gym. So I actually got a coach from that gym that wasn't working those hours. That was like, hey, do you want to make some extra money and run 6 p.m. because people are constantly like, hey, are you going to do anything in the evening? Are you doing anything in the evening?
Yeah.
So we ended up opening a 6 p.m. class, and I had a coach run that before, which was good because, you know, it kind of taught me about like, hey, I can make money and not be there.
Yeah.
Right.
So let me ask you, if someone's in this position now, let's say they have 600 to 1,000 square feet, they're doing everything that you were doing 10 years ago. What's the first hire? Another coach or an assistant? An admin?
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. I mean, just because here's the thing, right? Like, if you coach, right, you're probably the best in your business at that thing. Hopefully, you know, otherwise you need to get better. But so, what are you probably not the best at? Answering phone calls, writing emails, you know, things like that. Like, you have done it for a while, and you can now teach the other person, go like, look, you know, here's how I do things, and I just want to make sure you do it this way. But then there's going to be a person that's really proficient, probably 10 times more than you, right? Somebody that's done admin work before, I mean, they're like knocking stuff out like nothing, right? They're answering the phones, they're really nice, all this good stuff. And now you have more time to coach a couple more people. Maybe your hour now is worth $100 or $70 or $200, who knows if you're running groups, right? So if you're paying admin, really good admin, like, I don't know, you know, starting at $18, $20, whatever. You're not paying them cheap money, but, you know, now, like, you're paying them 18, but you can make 100, you know, or 80 or 200. Like, it's just.
Now, where do you draw the line on that? Because, you know, the saying is true, you get what you pay for, right? So, like so many times in business, people make the mistake, and I've made it. You try to save money and pay someone less than what you want to, and then they suck and you end up doing everything yourself. It's a tough.
It's a toughie because there's always exceptions. Like, for instance, like Tosh, who you've met, obviously, is our front desk person. You know, she was a member. She went from a member to doing a little bit of work, and I just basically we kind of exchanged services. The thing about exchanging services, you got to get rid of that as soon as possible. If somebody's really good, you just got to pay them. Right? Because sooner or later, they don't have any type of purpose behind it if you don't invest in them and show them that they're worth it. A lot of times, to be honest, like, I'd rather have somebody do 15 hours a week or 20 and pay them more than do 30, 35 and pay them less in their ship. So totally. That's certainly, like, hey, there's so much stuff that you can do now. Like, for instance, we still have, you know, we don't have an admin a big part of the week because that's a lot of money going out on payroll, you know, in those dead hours. There's not a lot of people coming through. But we have a company that does, you know, somebody calls, it goes to them. They're like, hey, you know, everybody's on the floor right now. You know, we don't bullshit. They're like, hey, we're a company that takes calls for them, like, we'll get right back to you, and then send us an email, and I get even a text who called, their phone number, what they wanted, and stuff like that. Now that costs probably 5 to 6 times less than having a full-time admin there. So there's a lot of ways around that, right? And there's a way, because like I said, we're not a big box gym where I'm like, hey, I got a 16-hour-a-day admin at the front desk, because that that can crush you, especially at the get-go. But if somebody can bundle like all the leads that are coming in, like all the billing, all the CC rejects, and they can knock that out in 12 to 15 hours because they're great and treat people awesome and write them thank you cards and all these good things, man, pay them like way more, but they'll stay and they'll be great, and then you kind of build it up as your business grows, versus like, because this is the mindset, right? And this is a scarcity mindset I think that a lot of gym owners have is, fuck, like, I'm gonna do everything because I gotta save money, right? And that comes into play at a certain point in time. But the thing is, if you're doing that and it's hurting the service, right, of the person. So now you're trying to do everything, save money, but now you're late for the coaching clients. You don't get
you're always burnt out, you're in a bad mood.
Exactly. Now the actual goal of what you do as your vocation is suffering. That's a fucking problem, right? I would rather go like, well, you know what? Instead of making, I'm making $2,500 a month, but I'm gonna not make more for the next 6 months because I'm gonna invest in an admin, I'm gonna invest in XYZ, because we just talked about this, the big picture, right? People look at the long game, versus the short game, and I think that's part of the reason we've done well is because, I'm always looking at the long game. Alexander Codd, who did the samurai painting and did all the paintings in the back, just came in and I paid him a chunk for the last work. And to be honest, I think a lot of gym owners would go like, oh dude, you spent how much on that art, right? Like, oh, you could buy fucking like 7 more hip thrust machines. I'm like, see, but to me, like that is part of the atmosphere and like what people feel when they come in. And I don't know if like people see 3 hip thrust machines instead of 2 is going to change their life. Well, neither is the samurai, but the thing is, it relays like who we are. Like every part of it.
So let's talk about that when we get down there. Let's just wrap it up here. So at what point do you decide, okay, I've outgrown this space, I'm ready to take a huge risk and move into the bigger space?
So my personal opinion on this actually is probably maybe different than some others. To me, like I always said, okay, if I go from here to wherever else, can I already break even? But the thing is like, because the coaching and the culture and the customer service was great, right? And it didn't matter if it wasn't the, hey, here's your towel, you know what I'm saying? Like, and so that's what I try to tell people is like, man, you can have a, shady garage gym, but you can have everything else be so excellent that you can grow and keep growing and charge a premium rate, when it's the right time, and then you can move, right? And I think too many people are trying to live other people's dreams. Joe D has that, Luka has this, that guy's got this. Oh, I saw this person's $2 million gym, and oh man, Todd Durkin, or and it's like, dude, Charlemagne the God has a great book, and he said he's got a chapter that says "fuck your dreams," right? And it's not what it sounds like, but fuck your dreams is like, hey, fuck your dreams when your dreams are somebody else's dreams. You're trying to be somebody else, man. Like, dude, what's your dream?
Right.
You're trying to be a rapper, maybe.
A lot of people do that.
A lot, but dude, you don't even like fuck rap. Like, you're an engineer, but you'll be the best engineer in the world. But you're trying to follow somebody else's dreams. And in the gym industry, this is super prevalent. Like, maybe you have, I went my own route, but maybe, dude, you have the best 1,500 square foot gym in the world. You got 100 members that each pay $400 a month on average, and you're doing $600,000 a year, but you're profiting $400,000, dude. Like, I don't know. There's so many different ways to do it. Stop fucking chasing somebody else's dream. Like, tap into what the voice is telling you, man. Like, and you could do whatever, right? But people chase this thing, and I see people burned out trying to chase this number, or like how much revenue you're making. And we talked about like big names that like, they bring in this much, but 92% of that is also expensive. Or that was the reason, and we'll talk about it when we get there, is like, why did I buy a building? There's multiple reasons, right? But one certainly is equity, exit strategy. If I wanted to, I'm never gonna want to leave, but I know that. But hey, 10 years from now, this place is worth 2 to 3 times what I pay for it, and it's already growing in that direction. So that's just a like big like idea, and kind of once again, long game, right? Because what I'm paying in a mortgage is a lot, right? But you could go like, well, shit, I could be putting down in my pocket. Like, yeah, but that's like small thinking, and it's like right now thinking instead of big picture thinking. Let's
walk and talk and go back to Slovenia. All right, so now here we are at the new spot, which is what, about a year old now?
Yeah, literally July, I think, is grand opening.
Yeah. And just down the block, and this is what, 5 times the size of the original one we were at?
10. Actually 11 if you count the whole building.
Okay.
It's actually, so the whole building, the bottom floor is 10,000, and then we got a little less than 2,000 at in that mezzanine. So it's like close to 12,000 square feet for the whole building.
Yeah, yeah. And one of my favorite places. I mean, you have created a masterpiece here. I just love this gym.
Thank you, man.
I mean, not only the equipment, the layout, the building, the stairs, everything about it. So it's also the culture that you've created here, which is a testament to you and who you are. And I always tell people, like, you walk into Vigor and you're gonna see every race, every age, every shape, size, color. It's amazing. And it feels like such a family atmosphere that you just want to be part of and hang out all day long.
And I think, one of the things that, as we came from the old spot, right, like the key for any business that grows, I think, is like, how do you keep the values and the virtues and the culture the same, right? Like, it's a bigger building, but you can't lose, like, look, we improved stuff, but you can't lose, like, what happened in the garage. You can't lose the way you treated people. You can't lose. Now you can upgrade things. I mean, as you grow, you learn new things. You find out stuff about yourself, and it's like, oh shit, that was a maybe negative trait or whatever, right? Like, and you change, and it evolves. But at the core, it's like, you want to be able to go. There's still people here, and I love this, right? They've been around for like legitimately like 8, 9, 10 years. We call them the OGs. They were at the garage. There's actually a lot of people from there, which is
super cool.
Oh man, it's the dopest thing ever, and it's like they'll still tell these like culture stories. Oh man, I remember where like we'd push the prowlers outside and like bus would come and like nobody'd move. We just finished the sets, and that became the norm. And and the police always coming from me. But the thing is like that, like how do you transfer that? Because I think people lose that. Like they think they become too good for certain things. They're like, well now we're here, like now we gotta, and it's like, nah man, actually you gotta keep a lot of who you are and then just upgrade it. And obviously just like Bruce Lee says, right? You learn new things and you eliminate the stuff that doesn't help you, that doesn't serve you or doesn't serve your people. And you add in new things, that do serve your people. And over time there's this evolution. But at the foundational level, when we moved in here, I told the team, I said, guys, I hope you understand, like, I'm back in the garage right now, me personally, here, because it makes me feel like we're starting over. And you gotta feel like that, because when you start being like, oh, look at this spot, like, man, build it and they'll come. And, now that we're here and, people talk about us, like, people just throw money at us. It's like, no, man, like, that's the beginning of the end. Like, that is legitimately, like, that's how things end. Oh, our marketing's on point or this, like, we're the guy. Like, no, man, like, you gotta stay true, stay true to yourself, and everything from the tree, man. The tree has roots and then it grows up, but the roots stay. You take the roots out, like tree dies, right? It falls over. And I think a lot of people get rid of their roots, and it's like you can't get rid of the roots. You can add skill sets, add things on top of it, remove some stuff that maybe is not that great, but at the foundational level, like who do you become? It's like this has to still be like that in many ways for it to be able to be perennial and to live and stand a test of time. All right, so this is the lobby, and what we wanted to end up doing was obviously having a place that people can, at the other 2 gyms we didn't really have this place where people can chill and stay afterwards, which I think is so important, right? Because it's like you talk about the third place, and the third place is like, we're done, oh man, we foam roll upstairs, we sit here, we have a smoothie and stuff like that. And we were able to, my idea was always like, how do we integrate everything together? And it kind of came that like I knew these guys, they had great smoothies, acai bowls, like their mindset around nutrition and health was very intact. And I remember bringing them in when this was like a shit show and it wasn't anything like it is right now. It was literally the old building. And I was like, here's what I'm gonna do, and they're like, all right, man, we believe you. And so they were in, so we brought them in. The design was, I had architects do it, but like the feel and the flow and everything was like completely mine. Like we sat down, I was like, man, this is what I want it to feel like. I want it to be higher end, but I want it to be rugged. I want it to have a feel of, it's almost like, remember where we came from and then look at the future. Like if so even the building in itself, it's 93 years old, the trusses are literally like, you'll see architects say, you cannot, like nobody builds with this anymore. These are massive, massive trusses from like one piece of wood. And we wanted to keep that, expose that, and show this history.
Oh, it's amazing how much character that adds to the place.
And but at the same time, have that like you got the stone, right? Polished floors, you got the metals, and you got the wood, and then the glass. Obviously, we ripped out all the storefronts. That's just like perfect example. Right now, summer, open up all the doors, cross breeze comes through, feels like almost open area, and that was kind of like the whole idea. It's like if you're in a kitchen and you have an open kitchen, why? Because you're entertaining, you're making the food, you're talking, you're having a drink, football games on, whatever. Like I want it to be like the same kind of feel where like people are training, people here are chilling, having a smoothie, high-fiving, going out, the music's everywhere, and it came, honestly, like nothing's perfect, but it came, together just as good as we could, and also have like this area that's a little more semi-private training based, and you got the turf where you can do the teep training. We got, a big rig that can be used for multiple purposes. We got a deadlift platform area, energy system area.
Take a little tour through and tell me about the staircase here.
All right, so the staircase has a story, and really what it was is like we wanted the staircase to be the centerpiece, like almost like artwork inside of the gym. And same thing, I said, look, I like industrial. I want it to be industrial. I want it to loop up, but this is like South African acacia. The beams are like, everything is cut to spec, like it's completely custom made. But what ended up happening is that the company actually underestimated how much it would cost to build it. So this, in fact, is not all on our dime, a $94,000 staircase. And let's just say that in our budget, what we paid for it out of budget was maybe a third of that. So I always say, like, does Jay-Z have a $40,000 staircase? I don't know, maybe not.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But but this is actually let's go upstairs and kind of start upstairs, because that's where our clients would start if they were coming in for a session. So this is the upstairs area. You can see Stav's like doing some mobility stuff, but we kind of have it like split in between the offices. We want to have an area where people can come up, do foam rolling, soft tissue work. We got the table, do mobilizations. You can pretty much see just about every tool there is to beat up the soft tissue. Actually, a lot of them are in the box. We got a chill spot, so after certain things, coach might sit down. People are just, put it this way, it's like an area to hang out, right? Like people are cooling down, they're talking, they're warming up. The more places that you can create for people to talk and bond, that's what culture is, right? Like you create a space. You don't try to push anything. You create a space and you create the opportunity for people to bond and create that culture. So we try to do as many of those things as possible. It takes it away from, like it'll be louder downstairs, it'll be quieter up here. People can still talk, can do their thing before and after. We can also do many workshops here, do mobility stuff. It's actually built to like be able to do like 10 to 12 person class of body weight and things like that as well. And then we have pretty much the offices, team room, Andre's office, my office. And to me, like this is honestly like still always one of the best views every night when I, get done with training and working. I go down these stairs and it does kind of give me this just feeling reminds me of like where we came from and how far we've come. And it is a feel of, it's a pretty great feel of just like this open space where you can see everybody working hard, you can see people connecting, doing the right things. And to me, it's inspiring, right? I think that your own work should inspire you, and not in a, I would say, arrogant way, but in a way of like how, we came from here to here. What's this next frontier, that we're gonna go to? So, we can go downstairs and kind of go around how the layout of the gym is and why it was this way based on the way the building is. All right, so the gym is kind of split up. Obviously you have the space that you have. These two rooms that you kind of can't see, we're putting a cryo chamber in there. It's gonna be called a recovery room. And then all the great stuff, that you don't see in most places, but the glute ham raise, the back extension. We actually kind of split it to where both sides that have. We got glute ham, reverse hyper, back extension. Right now the squat rack has, I'll say a lot of the sandbags in there, but it's Elite FTS rack, so we can have all the attachments on there. So I wanted to have at least 4 racks, plus we got 6 stations on the rig. But then from there we go into, and this is like all of a semi-private area. We took 3 of the platforms for old spot. As you can see, art is big here, right? Like quotes are big here. The Seattle skyline, is certainly one of those like, hey, this is 206, C-Town. with just
Yeah,
word.
one of my favorite quotes of all time.
Man, that is pretty much one of our, I would say, values, right? One of our values we always talk about, like as far as making, like every person that comes in here, like programming is important, sure, all of these things are important, but like, hey, how did you make that person feel? That's what they're gonna remember, and that's at the core of sessions, of everything, right? We have our energy systems, so you can see there's a good amount of them, from aerodyne bikes to ski erg to rowers. To in the corner, that's actually the first hip punch machine that the Seahawks had that Joel Jameson gave to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, dude, it's the original, it's the prototype, and we still use it. You know what I mean? It's actually pretty good for doing some cool stuff. The artwork, I want to always give a shout out to my guy Alexander Codd. So, if you guys saw in the beginning, we had you saw the samurai. It's like completely commissioned work on that wood, but that is 190 hours worth of work of spray. It's stenciled, right? So it's stenciled, 17 different stencils to black, gray, white to create that. And what I wanted to do is and you see a lot of places that have, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like bodybuilding heroes or superheroes, which we have too. But to me, I was like, man, who are people that change the world? I think sometimes, you kind of gotta, I don't even say shoot higher, but to me, those are the people that I read their works. From Bruce Lee to Gandhi to Muhammad Ali to Martin Luther King to Nelson Mandela to Einstein. I quote these guys a lot. I've read their works. They've changed the world essentially. Through their own struggles and through their own struggles and. Why don't we do something different? Why do we make it a little abstract so people have to actually look, and pay attention? And to this day, man, I'll trail on this turf. I do my conditioning, multiple times a week. I can't not go hard or finish strong or, looking at that, man. It's and that's real, I'll have these days and I'm like, I'm done. And it's we have this, with the whole team, I have this thing, and I call it the land of legends. So whenever I start yelling that, it usually means shit's about to go down and we're about to crush workouts. But that's the thing, I say, look, man, these people are looking at me like this is who I aspire to be, in a sense of helping people, right? Because you might look at somebody there and be like, they're not millionaires or billionaires or whatever, but man, each person there, change the world in some way, and change millions of people and help millions of people out. So that's an inspiration to me. It's not just hey, I want to be like that personal trainer, you know what I mean? It's more than that. And same thing with the Ali graphic, back there, which from Alex. And one of the things about that is it really is kind of impossible is nothing. Just a reminder that the human will and the human the human can achieve impossible things, that we create glass ceilings for ourselves, right? You'd never believe that in reality, if you understand comic books and Marvel and stuff like that, that Ali can knock out Superman, but it's if you read the comic, there was a time when that happened, but nonetheless, it's hey, this is not impossible. Strive to do things that nobody has achieved before.
Did that really happen?
There's a special edition where they had it was essentially it was a charity event, you know what I mean? And they thought, of course, Superman didn't want to use his powers. Yeah. So Ali knocked him down, knocked him out. But it's not, obviously, it's not some super strength stuff.
Yeah.
But this image to me represents hey, if this is the most powerful, being, whatever, on a planet, and it's but a human that has the mindset and the work ethic, can beat him. And to me, even if you don't, ever do that, you strive for that, you're going to achieve more than you ever can. And that's that whole, hey, you can't choose your potential, but you can choose to fulfill your potential, And so I think that's so important that, you're a big fan of the Culture Code. I'm a big fan of the Culture Code, Daniel Coyle's work. And it's have things around you that remind you of your mission, your vision, your that wall's getting slogans on it. They're all over the place. From do the work to give anything less than your best and sacrifice the gift until we all win, rise as one, us and we, that's a big, big, big theme for us, you know what I mean? For the good of all. If we all don't win, I don't win, you know what I mean? Everybody's got to win. If we're doing something together, you got to win, I got to win. Otherwise I'm not going to even do it. I'm not even going to go into it. And so what are the things that you create in this environment that remind you of who you are, that remind you of what you're striving for, that remind you about, like when a person comes in here, so many times they go like, you know, man, like I come in here, I'm tired, and then I look at this, and it's like just the stuff that's here, just little triggers that make me go, all right, it's time to work, man. It's time to get better. It's time to, you know, upgrade myself, right? And so those things matter, man. I believe like if you put much more effort and work into the customer experience, the little things that seemingly may not mean much, because you might say, oh, well, I'll spend some more money on an ad than I will, you know, spending thousands on, you know, artwork, actually tens of thousands on artwork in this building. But the reality is like these are all differentiators that talk about what, you know, what you believe in, what you represent, you know, who you are. And in a world where everything can be copied, a funnel can be copied, sales processes can be copied, I mean, you name it, systems can be copied. You know, what can't be copied is one, you know, who you are in position, like how you communicate, and then like the coaching and the customer experience. You can't copy that.
Yeah.
Like, or it's incredibly difficult to do. Like you can't just go copy paste, or, you know, it's a lot more work. And so to me, all this other stuff is, you know, the tip of the iceberg everybody can see. And what makes things great is below the water where nobody can see, and you got to actually come and experience it and be entrenched in it to create, you know, to create something great. And the reality is, man, like what's difficult is scarce, and what's scarce is valuable. So like, the easier it is, the more people can do it. The harder it gets, the less people are going to do it.
Right.
So
Way harder to copy.
Way harder to copy.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, this is not the easiest model to run. You know what I mean? Like, absolutely not. Every day I'm like, oh, well, somebody's like, dude, you could be way more profitable like this way. And just run it like this. I'm like, yeah, but then it's not the greatest. And then why the fuck would I do that? You know, that's just crazy to me, right? Why would I? Then let me get a couple of franchises of whatever restaurant or whatever, right? Like a franchise, and there's nothing wrong with that. And we'll just churn it like, you know, a system and do that. But this to me is a work of art. Like everything is, it's like you're sculpting, you know, you're sculpting this masterpiece, and like that's why I don't want to have multiple gyms, you know, because it's like as soon as you do that, your efforts go multiple directions.
Yeah,
you're managing more people. You're, you know, and for people that do that, hey, man, that's inspiring. I think it's great. Everybody's got their own thing, right? But for me, like I'd rather create one thing and it's the best in the world, and then teach how we did that, you know, in business coaching or in training systems or in coaching or in customer experience or because this becomes a lab, and it becomes very, very, I would say, like more in depth, right? Like I can go more in depth with everything because I'm here, because I'm coaching people, because I'm with my coaches all the time, because I'm like shaking hands and kissing babies all day long, you know? And it's like, and you can feel it, like you can talk. I sit down with people and talk about why they're here and their struggles and, you know, their pains and desires and frustrations. And so it's so real that like I see every aspect of it: the marketing, the sales, the training, the people, the communication, the connection, the management, the leadership. And it's very, very narrow. Like it's like this incubator of growth. As soon as you go, okay, now we're gonna open up one here, to me it takes away from, like, you know, if there were, I don't know, like how many Mona Lisas, you wouldn't appreciate the one, you know? And it's like work is art, right? Your writing is art, you know, the podcasting is art, like everything is art. And then, you know, do you just kind of hobby it, or do you want to become the best in the world at it? If you want to become the best in the world at it, then the little fucking minutia thing matters, and you do it exceptionally well. But then, you know what? That has a profound, and I would say exponential kind of result, right? Like, hey, if you, like, high-fiving somebody is not a big deal, right? For most people. But what if you high-five everybody the best with a smile, with this energy? Or if you know, talk to somebody for 2-3 minutes, but like you're so engaged, like, I'll be like, oh, okay, I get that. That's not a hard thing to do. Okay, cool. If it's not a hard thing to do it with every single person, every fucking day.
Yeah. Do
it phenomenally well, like, and inspire them in 2 to 3 minutes, and then do that for 10 years. And then it will change your world, and it will change their world, and you'll become the best in the world, and you make a lot of money, right? But of course, that's hard, right? And so, you know, but that's the approach that I look at taking with everything I do. I mean, even with the marketing stuff, even with the, you know, the sales and just the little stuff. I'm like, man, how can we do this better? Hey, when somebody does this, let's do that. Like, what about the, you know? And the thing is, I find myself really at peace, working really hard, focusing on the minutia. You know what I mean? Like when you focus on the process and the journey, like all this other stuff disappears. You know, like stressed out about competition and whatever, man. Like you're just there, and you're just like, how do I make this the greatest? And it'll never be everything I want it to be, but I think that's part of the process, right? It's like you're never gonna arrive at that place. You're just gonna keep getting there. And once you fall in love with that, you know, a lot of, I would say, the anxiety falls away too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And my friend, I didn't come all this way from LA just to talk. I think it's time to train.
Now let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, let's talk training.
Let's do it.
Tell me a little bit about your overall philosophy of training, some of your biggest influences, and you know how you prioritize.
Man, that's actually it is a tough question because I would certainly say it depends, and obviously nobody likes to hear that shit. But let's start with like my biggest influences, where certainly I would say, you know, Pavel was just like, if you asked me who was the first person that really influenced you, you know, pretty drastically in fitness, certainly Pavel.
Okay.
And when I started exploring, and before that I'd done a ton of study. I mean, like I said, I read, you know, Zatsiorskis and Bompas, but it's very hard to have that person inspire you into a certain philosophy and principle.
Yeah, so what was it about Pavel's stuff that you think had such an impact on you?
I mean, number one, it was the moment in time where, you know, I did my first kettlebell training session with my brother took me to the guy, Grega, who was the guy that showed us kettlebells for the first time, you know, and it was like, my brother was like, hey, look, man, I just did this workout with this metal ball, and it's like, it'll crush you. I'm like, man, it won't, whatever, man. Right, we did this 30 40-minute workout. I mean, I was smoked. You know, swings, clean and presses, goblet squats, you know, and here I am. I was, you know, deadlifting and squatting pretty heavy fucking weight.
Now, because someone who knows you, and me especially, knowing you well, there's a little bit of a dichotomy there because Pavel's thing is sub-maximal training. And that is not what I associate with you.
No.
Sub-maximal nothing is what I associate with you.
What we started a conversation, who was my influence, you know, not what I do right now.
Yeah.
I mean, but you know, the reality is I still think I use a lot of, put it this way, you know, I was so heavily influenced by kettlebells in the beginning of my career that, I mean, we called the first gym the Kettlebells the Body Project. I mean, that was before it was Vigor Ground, you know, and yes, it was because I studied, you know, Enter the Kettlebell was my kind of first resource, and from there was Power to the People.
Yeah.
And you know, what influenced me was that when I did that, I had insane results.
Yeah.
And I kind of flipped the switch from, you know, what you say you see me do now, you know, where I was like, all right, I'm gonna believe in this and let's go with it. You know, let's do sets of 5, 2 sets of 5 every day. You know, and I was like losing my mind doing it, but I was like, I'm gonna stick to this. You know, and my strength just went up. I mean, I hit my PRs in bench, hit my PRs in squat. You know, so that obviously opened the door to that. And I was even, you know, personally, obviously mentored by Pavel through, you know, doing one of the first, if not the first, I think, RKC in Europe. You know, also other events that I go to, he'd be there. We'd spend a good amount of time together. And everybody back then, it was like Steve Cotter and Steve Maxwell and Kenneth J, and just a lot of the, you know, I'd say the legends of kettlebells, you know.
Yeah.
So I just had this really good foundation, and I studied everything. So that was certainly one.
And I think it's important to point out for people who don't know. I mean, you like to train super hard. That's part of your DNA. That's part of everything you're about.
Yes.
But you don't crush people just to crush people. Like, you still consider the biological cost of training, of a training session, of a periodized program.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to understand that, like, you know, people zone in on the, like, for instance, if I write up like, hey, this is, you know, even yesterday's leg session. I mean, would I put most people through that? Like, absolutely not. Like, it'll destroy you, you know. But then I also have, you know, so many years of training. I respond certain ways to certain things. And part of it is, what do I enjoy, you know, or what pushes me past the point to grow? You know, like, there's a lot of factors here. It's not just, you know, put it this way, like, if I give you the number 8, you can get, you know, 4 plus 4 is 8, but so is 6 plus 2, so is 2 times 4. So, right, and to me, that 8 is what you want. Like, in fitness, there's so many ways to get there, you know what I mean? Like, I don't give a shit what anybody, like, no, you can only lift really heavy weights and get to this point. Maybe if you want to be an elite powerlifter, but what if you want to get pretty damn strong and be explosive and do that? Do you need Olympic lifts? No. Do you need to, right? Like, there's so many different ways we can do it. And writing a program or creating some structure for somebody doesn't entail just like, you have to understand, yeah, sure, what is the science behind it? But then what if you hate doing, like, I remember a period of 6 months, I could not fucking do a Bulgarian split squat. For some reason, I was just disgusted by them. I don't know if I did so many of them. And it's like, if you wrote me a program and put in a Bulgarian split squat, I want to slap you, right? I'm like, dude, I don't want to do that. And imagine you going like, well, but no, this is going to get you a great result. Like, but dude, I don't want to do that, right? Okay, cool. Well, do you want to do a step up? Yeah, cool. Do a step. You know what I mean? Like, so there's so many different things, and my mindset around that has changed so much because, number one, if I could get somebody coming here for a year, you can make them the best program in the world for like, and they'll follow it for 8 weeks. I'll give them like a program for 12 months, and I'll coach the shit out of it, and this person will crush the other person with the best program. So, you know, I've started looking at a lot of like fitness also behind what's fun, what's challenging, what does change psychology say? You know, what do social sciences say? You know, and I think that matters because I remember even back in the day when we started running group training sessions and boot camps, you know, and I was the guy, we're building a 4-week block, you know, and then there's a week off, and it's like, man, that's so crazy. When you actually zoom away from it and you go like what people want, what drives them, what makes them keep coming back, there's still people doing this, right? I'm like, okay, but what if next Tuesday somebody just comes to join your team training? What are you doing with this fucking 4-week block? Like, well, they can't join at that time. I'm like, come on, man, like this is crazy. They won't want to join 2 weeks later. Motivation is fleeting in a lot of this stuff, right? So you got to get them in and get them going and help them out. And so, you know, you got to look at so many more factors. And the reality now is like, look, if I want to get a pump in my chest, I'm going to throw in a bunch of shit that's going to pump my chest up at the end of the workout, you know? And somebody can go like, yeah, but it'll be more effective. It's like, no, what's more effective is that I keep doing this and I keep doing it consistently and I'm going to get a result. Now, if you give me an Olympic sprinter or a guy that's about to have a UFC fight in 16 weeks, I'm going to probably look at that different, right? And once again, guess what? I'm probably going to have to plug in things that they like, dislike. Hey, how much jiu-jitsu are they doing? How much striking are they doing? I got to find out everything else that happens in their life to kind of create this program.
All right, so the average person, busy person, just give me the hierarchy of training. What's important? What does the program need to include? Mobility, strength?
Absolutely.
How do you prioritize?
I mean, I still
average dude looking to feel good, look good, perform well.
Still, I'm still gonna go with like it has to fit R7. You know, I mean that's Mike Robertson's. Obviously, he just made it really simple to understand. There's 7 different R's. Number 1, release. Do some type of soft tissue work. Doesn't have to be crazy. I've definitely changed that over the years. Like as far as don't foam roll for 10 minutes. You know, hit the like what are you gonna work on? Do you have some restrictions there? You know, knock them out. What do you like better? Lacrosse balls, foam roll, stick. I mean, there's a lot of different stuff. If you go upstairs, there's a shit ton of stuff that we have. Just get something done for 3, 4, 5 minutes, you know, get some release. Reset, you know, I certainly am a big believer in resets. You know, and resets, anybody that study like things like PRI or DNS, you know, it may be, like I said, the exhales, making sure that your hip is in the right position, you know, crawls from DNS stuff. But that does matter. You know, like some people will be like, whatever. I'm like, look, from my personal experience and just the experience of coaching people, most people are just massively sympathetic. I mean, shit, look at me, like, you know, I'm drinking a bang while we're sitting here, which, by the way, you know, delicious. Look at this guy, he's gonna knock it out. First time, and he loves it. But it's, you know, like, how can I get him a little less tone? You know, that's how you get people that are in the gym. They've never trained, but their tone, man, they're like flexing their lats because they're constantly stressed. Their breathing is shallow. You know, they're in a sympathetic state all the time. I'm gonna try to get that a little bit more to neutral, right? With breathing drills, and then you got, you know, kind of, can I get the joints as aligned as I possibly can? Great, and that's not gonna be something crazy. It's gonna be like maybe 2 drills, right? And if they're really out of whack, I'm gonna go, hey, do this, can you do this 3, 4 drills at home? Look, it's really gonna help you. I'm gonna connect it to the anchor. So there's gotta be release, there's a reset, and then there's readiness, which we know as just dynamic warm-ups, right? Now, that's usually gonna be like, what are we training? Let me get those joints ready to train. Now, I've become a big fan of FRC, functional range conditioning, and just through the philosophy, and of course, maybe it matters more to me today because I've had really bad injuries. I know you've had, where it's like, shit, dude, I don't want to be beat up. And so, you know, really, there has to be independence before there's interdependence. Meaning, like, I have to be able to control my joint and by itself. If I then add stuff up to it, like, you know, can I control my hip? Internal rotation, external rotation, full flexion, full extension, you know, before I load a super heavy squat. If I can't do it by itself, as soon as I add weight, it's gonna create dysfunction at some point in time, right? So that dynamic warm-up is gonna be in some way, hey, let's work this joint that we're gonna train today and get it functioning a little bit better, right? And then of course, like, hey, if we're doing any lower body, hip mobility, hip extension, core activation. Once again, doesn't have to be, super long, but you know what? I have this philosophy around it. Like mentally, some people need a little bit longer warm up, not because that's what's truly necessary, but because their mind is going to be like, now I'm ready. Yeah. And that's going to make them confident, because if they're not confident, they're going to spaz out and they're going to hold back and be tight, and that's where they're going to get injuries, right? From there, you got resistance, which is your strength training. Now, this is where I think there's a lot of variability, right? For like nowadays, average person, I'm going to do some form of, let's say if it's an average person, I'm going to do a strength superset with them. They're going to train probably about 3 days a week, right? So, for instance, lower body, upper body, whether it's some type of deadlift hinge variation and then some type of push. Now, push may be horizontal, dumbbell bench press, could be even a way to, push up, could just be a push up depending on their strength levels. And RDL, trap bar deadlift, elevated sumo, right? I mean, we're going to fit this to where they're at, body positioning, what they want. Yep. But that's going to be heavier, right? 4, 5, 6 reps, maybe 8. Like, once again, depends on their goals. From there, I'm going to do some supplement work to support those two, right? And those are going to usually be 6 to 12 rep range. And then I'm going to finish off with some type of, I would say, higher end rep ranges. So I do want to hit like, most rep ranges in a training session for the average person, because they're going to get the most out of that. I think everybody likes pump work. So like if I finish with that, they feel the pump. If there's certain things that they like, I'm going to plug that in. Because look, I don't give a shit what you say. You could convince somebody all day long on the science of what you're doing. Yeah. But if they're like, man, I really want to, feel tighter here and like feel, man, I'm putting that in maybe a density set at the end. Then it's like, they're doing bicep, tricep extensions and glute bridges, for 12 minutes nonstop, and they're feeling a butt pump and an arm pump, but like we got the big rocks there at the beginning and they're winning. And then once again, depending on where they are as far as, after resistance is resilience, which is your conditioning. I like to split those things up, but if they can only come in so and so often, I'm going to finish that off with different types of energy systems. So I think that even a general client that wants to, build strength and muscle, but then also kind of get leaner, I'm going to have them do aerobic work. I'm going to have them do some type of anaerobic work, but I'm also probably going to have them do some type of anaerobic lactic, like 6-8 second sprints with 52-second rest. I think that most people, only train one energy system, and that's why they get smoked. I think a lot of people need aerobic work. That helps you recover better, that helps you, drop you in parasympathetic mode. But all of those, so I'm going to hit all those,
I think people throw it out because they think it's not that effective for fat loss. But
correct, and that's always the argument. But like, so I'll give you an example, right? This is something that I love doing myself. I'll come in, I'm tired. I'm going to just look at the timer, turn it on, and go like, I got 30 minutes. And then I just do like mobility drills, and I'm just going like nonstop. Sometimes just what I fucking feel like. Sometimes I ride it up. But by the end of the 30 minutes, I'm sweating. I never go past 150 beats per minute. I'm in that 120, 150 range. I'm in aerobic zone. Now, I got aerobic work done for 30 minutes, but I also worked on improving my joint health, right? So it's like, man, that's a double whammy right there, right? Like other stuff, how can I improve some GP, like I just wrote a program for Lauren. So 5-minute sled, 5 minutes bike, 5-minute swings, 5-minute crawls, right? And she's just rotating, getting some different movement variability, never going past 150 beats per minute. She leaves, she's sweating, she's feeling great. The person that wants to train, because that is an issue, right? Like some people are very driven to train, I am. So instead of me not doing anything, I'm working out, I'm getting a sweat on, but I'm actually helping myself recover from the crazy shit I put myself through when I'm doing hard training days. So, that, and the thing is, I like filters, I like boundaries. That's why I always liked R7, because it's like, also for my team, it was like, listen, guys, I skipped reactive, so after readiness is reactive, which is our explosive elasticity stuff, which some people, I got a guy right now that I'm just helping him really fix his hips. He doesn't have that yet, but maybe in phase 2 he will, because I do think if you're 50, 60, 70 years old, you should still train to be explosive and powerful, maybe in different ways. But just the fact that 1 out of 3 people that fall break their hip is enough to me to like, hey, you know what? We're gonna do scoop tosses. Hey, we're gonna do wall throws. We're gonna do foot fire. We're gonna do little mini hurdle hops. Like, we're gonna do those things. But now I have a filter, right? Now, if somebody goes, okay, cool, but like, you got a power lifter, so he just wants to get strong. Cool, well now that piece of the pie that ends up being resistance, we're gonna do more basically, higher threshold motor unit stuff. So we're gonna do more stuff over 80% of max, over 90% of max. Now, but I'm gonna still fit in everything. I'm still gonna get their mobility, I'm still gonna get their resets, I'm still gonna get their aerobic work. It's just gonna be fit towards their main goal. They're probably not gonna be doing as much, higher rep work, even though I do think that comes into play for them as well, because let's be real, if you're healthy, you can train longer without injury. When you can train longer without injury, you're gonna get a better result. And so I think Dr. John Rustin's got a lot of good things around that. And actually those two systems for me have fit together really well. We're like, running things through R7, looking at what John does, but like through my experience, like, I think there's so much variability in how you can build stuff that people get very, very locked into one thing. For example, I'll give you an example program that like what we do now with our small group. I'll literally break it down because like I run small group strength training Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday mornings. And the goal for those people is get stronger, build muscle. That's it, right? They're coming to our other team training sessions to do their conditioning. That's our circuits, our density and whatnot. So in those programs, we're gonna do a dynamic warm-up. We're gonna do our recess. And then I put a block up. Like block 1 is strength and power. Now I have a finite amount of time. I got an hour 10 maybe that I gotta fit all this stuff in, right? So I'm a little bit restricted. So I'm gonna start off with a strength exercise. Now we both know, look, I don't like back squatting a lot of people. Like this is general population. Nobody wants to like do a back squat for 500 pounds. So majority, even the tools there that we use are front squats, Zercher squats, double kettlebell squats, right? I'm using all these different tools, still loading it, but systemic load is lower than if I was gonna hit the back squat maybe, right? Same thing with the deadlift, like we're just fitting it towards them. So I'm gonna do a big lift like that, like for instance, trap bar deadlift for 6. And then I'm gonna do something contrast based. So med ball scoop toss, right? A squat jump, right? So we're gonna do a heavy with a power. And the thing is, and they're not moving through that really fast, even though we have a block of time, which might be 15 minutes. I'm like, hey, listen guys, work up to a top set of 2 to 3 hard sets, right? You start slow and you build up to a top set that's really hard and heavy, right? Maybe 2. But they're always using this contrast set until they peak out at their best throw, at their highest jump, right? But they're supersetting that with an upper body one. So it might be a floor press, it might be a core trainer push jerk or something, or push press, right? It's gonna be heavy. And then we're gonna contrast that with an upper body explosive. Bent over med ball throws, wall throws, scoop tosses, seated if it's something for the back, right? So bam, we hit that in for strength, and then I split it up into 2 density sets. One is a lower body hypertrophy, and they're gonna do 3 to 4 exercises for lower body. Maybe heavy hip thrusts, lateral band walks, single leg Bulgarian split squats, and maybe, some adduction was standing up with the band, right? We're gonna do that for 12 to 14 minutes. They're gonna get a lot of volume. It's gonna be safe. They're gonna get pump work. Everybody's gonna be like, Jesus, my legs, my ass, amazing, right? Gonna take a break. We're gonna do the same thing for the upper body, right? Dumbbell bench press. Perfect. We're gonna do something like, dumbbell bench press and a one-arm dumbbell row, or maybe a core trainer row, and then some type of maybe 3-way shoulder raise and band pull aparts and dumbbell curl, right? Like, and they're gonna do that, and they're gonna hit a certain amount of volume in that, and then we're gonna do a finisher. It might be a core, might be prowlers, whatever. We hit everything, right? But guess what? Over the weeks, like they can look at getting stronger. Like, oh man, I was deadlifting 145 and now I'm at 165. Hey man, that feels more powerful. This feels stronger. So their strength is going up. They're getting more volume in. They're building muscle. Look, if they're eating right, which is obviously a big part of it too, they're gonna be shedding fat. And we'll legitimately go squat, deadlift, squat, deadlift, squat, deadlift. But here's the kicker. We talked about cycling the loads. So the deadlift one day will be a heavy deadlift, but the next one will be band resisted deadlift, and I'm just going like, hey guys, I want you to be fast, right? And we're gonna do it for 4s or 5s, and now the load is lower, they're not as scared, they're not as beat up. Same thing with the kettlebells. I'm sorry, not with the kettlebells, with a squat. Like, so maybe it's like a heavy Zercher squat, which we were just doing the other day. 3-second down, 2-second pause, explosive up, heavy, right? Next time around, we might even do like an offset kettlebell squat as our main strength exercise, but now the load is way lower, but it's still challenging for them. So we're cycling that. Even though we're going hinge, squat, same thing with push, pull, like we're kind of cycling these loads so they're never getting like massively beat up with their CNS, right? But we're hitting all those different things. and I'm just running it through that filter. We're getting our warm-ups in, we're getting our release, we're getting our resets, we're getting everything that they need. We're hitting reactive, but we're just doing it in a contrast setting because, you know what, I don't have time to be, I don't have an hour and a half, I don't have an hour 45 minutes. Like, I gotta do everything in an hour, hour to 10, right? So I have these constraints, but I have this filter, and then I can build everything around it. And I think that's what's, you know, when you look at a gym, it's very different, right? Like if you look at yourself, look, I can be here for 2 hours, right? Hey, when I have a family, maybe I'll be able to only have an hour and 15. I'm going to have to change, but I'm still gonna use that filter and go like, what do I want? How am I gonna get there? How many days do I have? What's my time constraints? So I think there's still too much talk, I think, about what's optimal, right? Because what's optimal is like, dude, if you got 30 minutes, then what's optimal for that, right? If I have 4 days a week, what's optimal for that? Me personally, we talked about it. I love still, you know, conjugate training. I love two uppers, 2 lowers. You know what I mean? Max effort 1, rep effort, dynamic effort 1. That's still my favorite form. You know, like yesterday I did lower, smashed it. Today, upper. But it's like I got, you know, three and a half usually full days, you know, till I go lower again. And I'm cycling that too, you know, and I've been doing it for a long time, and I've done every program probably that I can imagine, but, you know, and then you have tools, right? And then somebody comes in and hits you with something that you're like, oh shit, okay. And you can pull that tool out of the toolbox. And like a program I just wrote for a client that can only come here once a month, but they're traveling a lot. You know, they looked at it and they're like, oh shit, like, man, you wrote this program. I don't really even need the gym if I have dumbbells and kettlebells, right? And I can do that in my garage. And I was like, well, yeah, like when I was listening to you talk, like you sounded like you have access to the gym, but that's gonna be at least an hour out of your day getting there and getting back, right? So if I can save you that, but all of the stuff that I put in there is gonna fit your goals. You're gonna get stronger, you're gonna build muscle, you're gonna get leaner, like we're working on your nutrition, man. And it's like he was super happy, like, oh shit, oh, this is possible. It's like, dude, you don't need to go to the gym, right? Now, at a certain point in time, maybe we're gonna crank it and like, I'll be like, hey, dude, 2 days is at the gym, 2 days is at home, right? It's so, I think I just look at it different now because I know all the geeky, not all of, but I know a lot of the geeky stuff and still study it to a very, very deep degree where I can go very, very deep with it. But I realized that, like, look, man, if, you know, Susie Sue comes in or Jack comes in, and he's liking what he's doing, and he's coming in here 3 days a week, we're already winning, right? And he's doing a lot of the right things. Look, I'm making their joints move better. You know, they're getting their breathing down pat. They're able to control their ranges of motion and end ranges. They're doing some strength work, they're doing some hypertrophy work, and they're doing some energy system work. Dude, that's winning. Yep. You know what I mean? And in 5 years of them doing that, their life will be fucking dramatically better. It will be after 6 months, but if that becomes part of their life, you have changed their life. Regardless if fucking they did, you know, cluster sets, or, you know, they got their ratios right, or they rested a little longer. And that's what I realized is like, how can I help them do that? And if that means like, hey, we're gonna scratch 30% of the workout and put in all this stuff that you love, and I'm just gonna coach the shit out of it, but they're like, oh, thanks so much, man, that was so awesome, like I'm smoked, whatever, right? Like that keeps them coming back. And that also helps me educate them more. Hey, you know, recovery is really good. This is why we're doing this today, because of this, and that, and this is how it's gonna get you to your goal. And so there's so many factors in training that I just don't think, like I think people get so geeky that they forget that we're human beings and we have time constraints and kids and stress and, you know, emotional triggers that make us behave a certain way. There's things that we like, and people want to do things that they like to do. Why don't we help them like fitness? Why don't we help them like strength training? Why don't we help them like throwing shit around? You know what I mean? Like, I look at the kids and it's like, sometimes I can tell, like, they're not liking this. Cool, fuck it, let's play a game. Yeah. Oh yeah, man, thanks coach. All right, well shit, then I'm gonna integrate it somehow, because they're gonna keep coming back for that. And over time, they're gonna start, you know, like listening to more stuff that I say and changing these things. And so then the question is like, does your ego get in the way, or are you really caring for the person? Because if you care for the person, you want them to win. And it's like, what is gonna help them win? Is it gonna be your knowledge that's so deep and going like, well, listen though, what I read is this study that this is way better. They don't give a shit. Like, they wanna do, like, you gotta kinda find that compromise essentially, you know what I mean? And that's what, like, so you have to filter like all these great things, but also figure out what's gonna keep bringing them back in, you know? And I'm much more confident about talking about, like, I see people go like, well, we do it this way. I say, how's that working for you? Well, you know, like, some people like it, but classes aren't packed. I'm like, man, I should maybe tell you something. You know, like, we don't, now we undulate our group training, undulated all the time, because somebody can come in today. They did. I think we signed up 2 people today.
Yeah.
We'll sign up 2 or 3, 4 more on Saturday, right? They're gonna start now.
Yeah.
So what am I gonna do? Oh, hey, listen, sorry, dude. Like you started in middle of the week too, so you're gonna have to. No, dude, it doesn't work that way, right? But I use a lot of stuff like podcasts and videos and emails and everything else to explain the philosophy so that they understand it. Like, hey, in density training, you're gonna be going from anywhere from 8 to 15 reps. In intervals, you're gonna be doing this and this and that. Over time, the goal is just progressive overload, right? And then you also teach recovery. Hey, why do some workouts feel a little easier? Because we drop the volume, because we literally are cycling it all the time, right? And so over time, people get educated about it. And now our members, it's crazy because like they'll be like, oh, well, the reason it's like this today is because of this. And I'm just like so proud. And because when they understand it, they're more committed to it, right? And so there's so much more to this, right? Because we could go like, Luka, here's this guy, here's what's going on, make a program. And I could certainly write it down and explain everything, go like, this is the best program. But, now there's so many other things that I'd want to talk about, whether that really truly is the best program, And I think when people get to that place and they're taking into account everything else, they'll start making better programs, right? Because the best program is the one that people will continue to do.
Yep.
That's it, period. I don't give a shit, on paper, everything looks really, 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 you can go like, ooh, that looks really, really scientific and professional and whatever, but it's like, okay, cool. Take this and and put it in the gym. Let me see if you can run this. Let me see if people keep coming back. Let me see if they're engaged with it. And it's questionable for a lot of stuff that I see nowadays, you know what I mean? So, hope that answers the question.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right, let's train.
Let's do it.
My man, what a great day. What an amazing place you've created here. Thank you so much for
My pleasure, dude.
sharing your story,
Oh, man.
showing us around, getting in a good workout.
The doors are open to you 24/7, my friend.
Always, always.
But on a serious note, man, thank you for, like anytime I get to share the story and share what we do here, hopefully, one, it inspires, hopefully it fires people up to see that they can do amazing things if they put their mind to it and are not willing to stop working to get to that North Star. And hopefully some ideas get spurred. And, at the end, if you don't take fucking action, nothing matters. So it's like, if you got something from it, take action on it. Don't wait around and just sit there, man. But, I love you and appreciate you, my brother.
Absolutely. And follow this guy at Luka Hocevar on Instagram.
Absolutely. And Vigor Around Fitness.
Yes, sir.
Vigor Around Fitness.
That's it.
Go.
And make it swallow.
What do you think of the after hours lifting crew, man?
It's way later than I like to train. I'm dead, but it's a good little crew here, though.
Don't you usually train in the morning?
I usually train like around noon. I thought we were going to train 7 hours ago, but I asked Luka one question, and I asked Luka one question. He spoke for like most of the day. And then I made the mistake of a follow-up question.
Let me ask you something, Rick. Would you want to?
No. Absolutely not.
People that would just give you one sentence answer.
Nah.
How about you feeling that? Hey, I want the edible. 37 dances in 10 minutes. Dude, Jay had 37 dances in 7 minutes. Shit, I don't even think you have it right now.
No, I couldn't think of it.
Up, like fucking Carlton. Yeah, you know who doesn't, like, not only does Dennis do the Carlton, he is fucking Carlton. You show him the Carlton, bro. Come on, man. Really? Like, dude, he is, when he has a little mustache, bro, he is Carlton, dude.
Yeah.
Is he not fucking Carlton? Right on, dude. And
Akeem is like, I'm not saying that to his face.
He'll be in the fucking suit. Oh, man, like, dude, that's him. It's him. Suffering better. Fresh to the left. You know, it's suffering way better. Coffee and whiskey.
Oh, you hit coffee? Really? Yeah, come on.
Give us a little. Give us a little.
Let's see it now.
You gotta put the song on.
Put the Tom Jones on.
Oh, you gonna put on Tom Jones?
Put the Tom Jones on. The beat, don't worry about it. You said the Carlton beat? I didn't ever want to listen, you can't have the camera on you and freeze, man. Let's go. Let's go. But I didn't want to do this anyway. Oh, dude, it's possible.
There we go.
It's really him.
There we go.
No, it is not me.
He's pulling it in at the top. That's super hard.
That changes the game.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd probably go. See, the thing is, like,
If I'm just going up and down, I'll get that for 25.
and I'll go heavy and do that, and then I'll go fucking to like 75, 80,
Yeah.
and then do it like that.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Because, like, I mean, yeah, I can wreck the shit out of it. But to get it up,
Yeah.
that's a different ballgame. And then my grip will start fucking with me too.
Yeah. Maybe I'll do one stretch with this, and I'll do one like cheat rep set with this.
And you do almost like the number of finger presses, you'll do that?
Yeah.
Go with that one time.
I like that. Yeah.
Because as soon as we wrote that, I was like, alright, that means that happens to me. I feel like with the push press, I can hit 12, 75.
Yeah.
12.
Yeah. I was sick fine, 75 for 12. It's funny when I posted that Danny Vega keto counterculture, it's like, man, you've been doing this for 20 years, people don't even know.
But the thing is, that's true though. Like, for most people, they might be like, oh man, that's not a good lift.
Right.
Yeah. Where you put the 10? We'll do it right there. Yeah. So this way, 10 to 12.
So, 225. We got some dumbbell.
Lessons plan of mine.
Hey, but here's the kicker is like,